Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the council meeting. I hope you've all had a good summer. Before we start the meeting, I ask Councillor Hill to say prayers and world events. I would like to take the opportunity to remind everyone here of the importance of behaving appropriately whilst in this chamber. We must always treat each other with respect and courtesy, and even though we have political differences, it is important that we conduct ourselves appropriately as leaders in our communities. Thank you. So, Councillor Hill, could I call on you to say prayers, please?
Thank you, Nick. Dear Lord, today we pray you watch over us and give us the courage to make the right decisions. Here I am, fighting for a future of faith, family and freedom. Amen. Amen.
First item, apologies for absence. Sorry, I was looking for reform first. Yeah. No. Sorry, Councillor Price, sorry.
On behalf of Councillor Bradley and Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. And Councillor Dale.
Yeah, Councillor McGuinness is unfortunately running late from a work meeting. He's hoping to be here, but will be late. So if we could just record his apologies, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhill.
Yeah, Councillor Monkman sends her apologies. Could I also ask if the council would be interested in a minute's silence given the terrorist attack in Manchester, given it's so near and the loss of life? Is that something you consider? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fordham.
Loudon, Chair.
Councillor Kinsella? No, and we're okay from the independents. Thank you. Thank you. Item 3, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest in the business before council today? Councillor Wheelton.
Chair, I declare an interest as councillor in both my capacity as County and South Derbyshire District Councillor on agenda item 19 and motion 1 and 2. I've taken advice and I could face the allegation of predetermination if I vote. I shall therefore be abstaining on these motions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gourlay.
My wife is trustee of a charity which did receive money for the befriending service. So at that point, I will withdraw from the chamber.
Thank you. And Mr. Simon Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, obviously, I have an interest in agenda item 15, so I'll leave the chamber when we get to that point. Thank you.
Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm a substitute member on South Derbyshire District Council Planning Committee. So regarding the motion 1 with the BES and the mention of South Derbyshire specifically, I take advice. Do I need to declare any form of interest?
Sorry, Helen's going to respond.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So in terms of advice on that particular motion, it is obviously a matter for individual councillors who are councillors of South Derbyshire District Council. Councillor Wilton has obviously given her view and the advice that she's been given. Of itself, my advice is that in agreeing the motion, you are not automatically predetermined, but obviously information that you might well speak in the debate might indicate otherwise. Obviously, you would need to take advice from the monitoring officer of South Derbyshire South Derbyshire District Council in relation to your membership and any decisions that you might make at planning committee at that particular authority.
Thank you. I also have to declare a pecuniary interest in item 14 as the proposal would benefit me financially, and I will leave the meeting while it is considered.
And in item 14 as well, as the proposal would benefit me financially, and I will leave the meeting before it's considered.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, sorry.
I need to declare an interest in the befriending as well. My wife works for a charity. What was involved with the befriending service?
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to Chairman's announcements, the housekeeping. This meeting will be live streamed and available for subsequent playback through the Council's website and YouTube channel. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance with the Council's published policy. If any member of the public has concerns about this, please speak to a member of staff. Please ensure that mobile phones and IT equipment are set to silent. Please speak clearly into the microphone so that both councillors and members of the public can hear you, and a reminder that the voting buttons are being used. Please press the button once to request to speak and once at the end of your speech. No need to press it again. Please ask for assistance from Democratic Services that are present if you need help. This week we have learned that Albert Keir has died at the age of 100. For members that don't know, Albert was made Honorary Freeman of Derbyshire at a special meeting of the Council earlier this year. Albert was one of the last surviving veterans of D-Day and was awarded the Legion d'Honneur by the French government for his extraordinary bravery. We send our love and condolences to Albert's son and family at this time. I'm also sad to report the death of two distinguished fire service colleagues since our last meeting. Former Chief Fire Officer Gavin Tomlinson sadly passed away on the 27th of August, and we were then shocked to hear of the sudden passing of Chief Fire Officer Rob Taylor, who died following a short illness on 10th of September. Our thoughts are with Gavin and Rob's families and colleagues at this difficult time, and we thank them for their distinguished service to the people of Derbyshire. We also pay tribute to Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent, who died on the 5th of September. And in recognition of what's been said about Manchester attacks, please remember anybody in your thoughts as we now stand for a minute of silence, please. Thank you. Did any members present may wish to say a few words? Councillor Graves.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to speak on Albert Keir because I did meet him. I was pleased to attend his 100th birthday party. And I think it's appropriate for us to discuss his, mention his achievements through his life. Albert Keir was born on the 26th of June 1925 in Aberfeldy. He grew up in Chapelton and attended school there. Albert left school at the age of 14 and began work as an apprentice painter and decorator. He was a member of the local Defence Volunteers, and in 1939, this led him to becoming involved with helping to camouflage hydroelectric dams and buildings as part of the war effort. In 1943, at the age of 18, he joined the Royal Navy, and following commando training, he was assigned to be part of the crew of the Flower-class corvette HMS Potentilla, where he carried out generalship duties and gunnery. Albert became part of the Royal Navy crew that escorted ships ferrying US troops onto Utah Beach in France on D-Day on the 6th of June 1944. This role also involved patrolling the sea and surrounding beaches to ensure bombs were detected and destroyed prior to the landings. Albert's crew especially escorted the ships into France and rescued soldiers and airmen that had been injured in the conflict. For this, he was awarded the National Order of the Legion of Honour by the French government in 2022 for his heroism. The Légion d'honneur is the highest French order of merit for both military and civilian personnel. Following the war, Albert moved to Bakewell, worked as a painter and decorator for Derbyshire County Council. He left to work at Furness and Hassels in Longstone, but returned to the County Council in the 1960s. He retired around 1990 at the age of 65. To honour the memory of fallen comrades during the war, Albert sold poppies for the Royal British Legion, becoming one of the longest-serving poppy sellers in the country. And he returned to Normandy in June this year with other veterans to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. While there, he also met His Majesty King Charles. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just echo some of the kind words that Councillor Graves said about Albert Keir. I did have the pleasure of meeting him for just a short moment in time during the fantastic meeting to bestow on him the freedom of Derbyshire. And what a remarkable man he was. It was an absolute pleasure to meet him. I really got the sense that he was just such a lovely person that would really light up the room, when people would met him and really make people feel good about themselves. He had a great sense of humour. We don't often do some of the nicer things in this council chamber. It could be quite adversarial at times, but when we do get together and get to do those really important, lovely things, it is such an honour to have been part of that council that bestowed on him that honour, because it was such a great man, and it was such a lovely thing to be part of and to have done. So it was an honour for us as much as it was for him, I think. So yeah, he was a wonderful man, a real patriot. He raised hundreds of thousands of pounds, as far as I'm aware, for Royal British Legion, and he'll be sadly missed by all who knew him. So on behalf of the Conservative group, we would like to offer our condolences to all of his friends and family. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. Truly the greatest generation. Councillor Bull.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say a few words of the two chief fire officers who've sadly lost their lives in the last couple of months. Gavin Tomlinson had done over 30 years service to Derbyshire Fire and Rescue and had worked his way through from the full ranks to become chief fire officer. And he was a wonderful chap, and he won the King's Award and went to Windsor Castle to pick that up for firefighters. And his retirement came earlier this year in February. It was supposed to be April, but unfortunately the illness he was suffering with gave him early retirement. He actually went on a bike ride of Europe in his last couple of months before he sadly passed away. And that's the sort of character, he wouldn't let anything beat him. And he did over 30 years for Derbyshire Fire and Rescue. Rob Taylor took over from Gavin in February, and he was leading his way and putting a different slant on it and wanted to do the job his way and was working tirelessly. And for somebody at the age of 45 just to be taken ill over a weekend and then lose his life with everything he'd got to live for after only losing his wife earlier this year is such a sad occurrence. And I'd just like to thank their friendship and the work they've done for Derbyshire Fire and Rescue and the many members who have worked under them. I think there's only Councillor Burford who's gone through the 8 years, same as I have, and known them both. So I'd just like them to be remembered today.
Thank you, Councillor. I think it's important we recognise the service of the blue light services to our community, and it's a tragic loss. Councillor Greenhalgh, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to associate our group's comments around Albert and the two firefighters also. But just turning to the events in Manchester, obviously I was appalled and deeply saddened by that horrific attack at Heaton Park Synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. So the thoughts of myself, our group, and hopefully all members and staff at DCC are with the victims, the family, and the entire Jewish community. in this devastating times. No one should ever feel unsafe while gathering to worship. This attack is an attack on all members of our society, and it's a reminder that we all must stand locally and nationally against anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms, and particularly where the violence is never a solution to any of our disagreements. So it's a timely reminder that actually the words and deeds in these chambers sometimes have effects beyond it, so we all need to be aware in our moderation in our language in places like this, because it does have sometimes real world impact. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor. And Councillor Forden, please. Sorry? You're okay.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. In paying tribute to Albert Kerr, there's a half joke in Bakewell that if you're there in October or November and you don't have a poppy, then you either don't know Albert Kerr or you haven't met Alistair Sutton. And I just want to highlight Alistair's work in supporting the British Legion, the Poppy Appeal, and in particular Albert as an ally of the County Council. He's done a huge amount of work behind the scenes and is a massive advocate on that cause. In the Chamber, I think about 3 years ago, there was a fairly unpleasant moment when the leader said that he thought if we were drawing the line at people who could come to Britain, he might use the word Albania. The religious persecution in Albania is the precise example of what happens in Manchester when we get it wrong. The right to freedom of worship, the right to worship in any way you wish. As someone who leads a dissenting chapel not far from Tideswell, there was a time when my own faith was persecuted and illegal. And in that sense, I think a little tolerance by us all would see fewer events of tragedy, such as we saw in Manchester. The thing we know about Manchester is it will not be the last. And I have spent too much time having to turn up to a synagogue because I'm not Jewish, I require identity. That can't be right. To walk into a place of worship and be security checked is not the right place to be. My thoughts go out to the congregation there, but also to the police, who had to make some pretty grim decisions in a pretty heated situation, but did so very, very quickly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hobson, please.
I'd like to echo the tributes that my colleagues have made, particularly Albert in Bakewell. What a wonderful man, what a hero, a man for our times. The greatest condolences to his friends and family. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gourlay.
I'd like to echo many of the words spoken today, but I'd like to pick out just one thing about Rob Taylor, which hasn't been mentioned yet, and that's that he was the commander when the Toddbrook Reservoir was in danger of killing many people within the High Peak. He was the commander on the day, and through his swift actions, many lives were saved. I'd like to pay tribute to him.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Cliff.
Thank you, Chair. Gavin Tomlinson, KFSM, and Rob Taylor, two extraordinary chiefs of the fire service. Two men who were dedicated not only to the fire service, each of them with over 20 years of service, but also to the people of Derbyshire, committed to provide the best emergency response service they possibly could. But they were also husbands, fathers, brothers and sons. And I would like to assure the Council that both the Derbyshire Combined Fire Authority and the DFRS are providing all the possible help and support available to both families at this, the most difficult of times. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you all for those tributes. It's really important we recognise. Sorry, Councillor Abbott.
Just add, Chairman, that today we have sent out a letter to the Jewish community in Derbyshire with our condolence and support for them. I would just like it noted that we have sent a letter.
Thank you. I wasn't aware, but that's really good. Thank you. Right, I'll continue on to my announcements. Firstly, a recognition of the 75th anniversary of the Creswell. Acknowledge the risk taken by many who work hard to support our lives. And in that occasion, 80 lives were lost in the mining. We organised the BJ Day service in Matlock, which was very well attended and received. And thank you for those who did support us. My wife and I attended a fundraiser for the Army Benevolent Fund at Chatsworth House. I would like to recognise the hard work of our Armed Forces champion, Councillor Wilson. Where are you, Councillor Wilson? There we go. He resolutely promotes the Armed Forces Covenant at every opportunity and advocates for veterans. Thank you very much for that. We are organising a Remembrance Day service on Tuesday, the 11th of November at the Council House. If you're able to attend, please look out for details. It was also an honour to attend the Derbyshire County Council Awards and to hear and recognise the dedication and achievements of our very hard-working council staff. Last week, the council leader, Alan Graves, and I attended Brailsford Ploughing Match, engaging with farmers and the essential supporting businesses of that really important industry. As well as these highlights, I've attended a number of civic services around the county. Excuse me, I'm just going to move on to a change to the agenda. We have a number of motions on the agenda which is important we debate today. Understanding 4.2, I'm therefore going to exercise my discretion to bring the motions forward and they will be dealt with before the member questions. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, minutes. The minutes are on pages 1 to 40 and we wish to approve them held on the 9th of July 2025. Are there any comments on accuracy only? Wonderful. Yeah. Can have a proposer that we accept the minutes as approved? Thank you, Councillor Graves. Seconded, Councillor Reaney. Thank you. Do we need to vote? Yeah, we do need to vote. The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And now item 6, we'll move on to the report of the leader of the council and members' questions on the report. Thank you, Councillor Graves.
Thank you. Firstly, Mr. Chairman, as other people have already mentioned it, I want to extend my deepest sympathies for all the families and those victims outside Heaton Park Synagogue in Crumpsall, Manchester. These were people peacefully going about their life, celebrating their holiest day in their calendar. It is unacceptable that here in Britain, successive governments have allowed our society, our communities to become easy prey for despicable, divisive and dangerous people to live amongst us. There is no place for this violence or hatred in our country, and we must stand together against those that openly hate British values and those that pretend to advocate peace. As a tolerant country, we must decide what the limits are for such tolerance, and we desperately need someone to lead our country in that vein. On a lighter note, I am pleased to report an interim CEO has been selected from existing officers. I ask you to welcome Simon Stevens officially on the report, as on the report on the agenda, and also to thank the outgoing Managing Director, Emma Alexander, whom some of you who survived the last elections would be more familiar with. I'll go on to talk about Emma later on in my report. Personally, I would like to thank her for helping me as the new leader. Some of the activities I've been doing include, in September, I was invited to Cromford Mills to view the progress being made on the restoration of those buildings. I really enjoyed my invitation to lunch with the Earl and Countess Burlington at the Chatsworth Country Fair. I was invited onto the hot seat of Radio Sheffield. Apparently they cover parts of North Derbyshire and people wanted to hear what I had to say. I attended the Radio Derby Make a Difference Awards. I was also pleased to be at our very own Employee Awards evening. This was a great success. The whole cabinet were in attendance as well as our chairman. I was invited to the opening of the new University of Derby Cavendish building, focusing on business. It was again a pleasure to meet Lord Burlington. I am pleased to inform members that I attended the 119th Brailsford ploughing match, as mentioned by the chairman, on the October the 1st in my home village of Barrow-on-Trent, hosted by one of our local farmers, Ken Atkins. I was amazed at the number of farmers showing off their skills in hedge cutting and ploughing. It included modern, vintage, and even horse-draw ploughing. October the 2nd, I did my regular hot seat on Radio Derby and visited one of our big investors in Derbyshire, Toyota. In terms of EMCA, it launched the 3 million Community Development Fund, which focuses on deprivation across 10 areas. Derbyshire is benefiting in Cotmanhay, Gamesley and Bolsover. Then we have the Inclusive Growth Plan around better career guidance, work experience, adult retraining, especially in green energy and digital skills. Inclusive in that, it will be hopefully led to share prosperity, fair opportunity and well-being for everyone, rather than exacerbating inequalities. The Match My Project scheme was launched, a free service connecting community projects with businesses who can support them through funding, volunteers, materials or expertise. Nearly 17 million was secured from the Brownfield Housing Fund with a target of 1,400 new homes. For Derbyshire, these are in Maston Moor, Chesterfield, Bolsover, Langley Mill and Ilkeston. 200 million has been transferred for the transport investment. In terms of major regeneration and infrastructure projects, work is progressing on the South Derbyshire Growth Zone, Infinity Park in Derby, that attracts a substantial number of workers from the county, and Avenue Site Southern Access in Wingerfield. My update on SEND, one of my group's priorities. The SEND Assurance Board continues to meet monthly, focusing on our Priority Impact Plan, and the minutes are available on the Derbyshire Local Offer website. Fortnightly performance meetings are held. These use live data to monitor delivery. Since May, we have seen an 82% increase in the number of education, health and care needs assessments. We now have the structure to maintain this level of completion. Over 95% of decisions to assess are now being made within statutory timeframes. Our partnership with schools and special schools is ongoing. Staff are working hard to increase the number of specialist placements available. For those who may not be aware, the current SEND framework was introduced with the Children and Families Act 2014 under the guidance of a coalition Conservative Liberal Democrat government led by David Cameron. This act overpromised and underfunded, creating an adversarial and unsustainable system. In 2015, the demand for EHCP was at 240,000 nationally. It is now over 600,000. And the high needs block of the dedicated school grant is overspent in every upper tier council. This is not just a Derbyshire problem. Despite this, I think we have and continue to work hard to meet our obligations to the residents of Derbyshire. In terms of potholes, another priority for reform, in May there were approximately 17,000 left by the Conservative administration, knowing that they were not going to be holding the reins after the 1st of May. This backlog, nearly completed, cleared after 6 months of Reform Council in control. There is a change in operation in that we are focusing on more permanent repairs and patching rather than filling in individual potholes. Most other days I was at County Hall. I just wanted to let all councillors know that while I'm out representing Derbyshire in all sorts of spheres, I tend to drive there. So you'll forgive me when I'm perplexed when Conservative councillors feel the need to video mine and the deputy leader's empty parking spaces and place them on social media. The funny thing about one of those days is that I just left to meet one of the businesses that serve the council, and Councillor Rini was watching Councillor Gourlay from his window. He was without his car for a few days and travelled in his van, which was too big to park in his normal parking space. So he parked it round the corner. Well, all I can say, Mr. Chairman, is that the mystery of where all those dummies I keep finding lying around in the corridors is now solved. Mr. Chairman, members and colleagues, today I want to take a moment to recognise and express mine and the Council's heartfelt thanks to someone who has played a pivotal role in Derbyshire County Council, our outgoing Emma Alexander. Emma has led this organisation with professionalism, dedication and integrity throughout her tenure. Her leadership has seen the council through some of the most challenging times local government has faced, from financial pressures and service transformation to the continuing recovery from the pandemic. Through it all, she has demonstrated calm, capable and compassionate leadership. Under Emma's guidance, the council has continued to deliver essential services to the people of Derbyshire while navigating change with both purpose and care. She has helped with the modernisation of the way the council works, strengthened partnerships with our communities and ensured that Derbyshire continues to be a place where we can all be proud to serve. Emma has also been instrumental in driving collaboration across departments with external partners, always encouraging a one council approach, always focusing on what's best for the residents. Those who have had the privilege of working closely with Emma know her steady hand, a thoughtful listener and someone deeply committed to public service. Her professionalism is matched only by her humanity. She treats everyone from staff to members with respect and fairness. As Emma moves on to the next chapter of her career, we want her to know how much she will be missed, not just for her expertise and leadership, but for her warmth and integrity. On behalf of the council and indeed the people of Derbyshire, I offer our sincere gratitude and very best wishes for the future. Emma, thank you for your service, your leadership and your unwavering commitment to Derbyshire. You leave behind a strong legacy and an organisation that is better for your time at the helm. We wish you every success and happiness in whatever lies ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. You won't be surprised to know that you've got some questions. And I'll call on Councillor Fordham, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up the point the leader said about social media, could I just cheekily precede my question with I hope Councillor Smith had a good holiday. Could I pass my congratulations to Alex Millwood on becoming a father? And to Joss Barnes, we'll judge you on what you think, on what you say and what you decide, and not what you wear. In that vein, the leader talked about tolerance having boundaries and was gently cynical about inclusiveness. When I was elected to this chamber, a couple of former members were somewhat derogatory about my marital status. At the time when I was elected here, my marriage was not recognised in Northern Ireland. If you seek to go and work there, your declaration as a gay married couple is that you're not married. That's subsequently changed about 26 months ago. And the change, and I say this to the leader, is important. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be included. You can't be cynical about inclusiveness and look for boundaries on tolerance. The whole point of forgiveness is to not judge. And I ask you to not pursue that route, or at least to reconsider your cynical tone on inclusiveness.
Councillor, there is going to be a question.
If he's going to bring in boundaries on tolerance, where does it start and end?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not really sure what he's expecting an answer from that, because it was more about a statement about how he feels about he's been treated within this society, if you like. I condemn any bad treatment of people. I don't really know how to answer that question.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions, but can I first also repeat some of Alan's kind remarks about Emma? It's been an absolute pleasure working with you, Emma, for the past 8 years. You will be very sorely missed. You've been a fantastic Chief Executive of this council, and before that, as a corporate director, we've been through some extremely challenging and difficult circumstances as a council, and some, good times and bad times. And you've always had a really strong presence, the real mettle to get through some of those issues, and cool, calm, steely sort of approach. And I've always appreciated it. So thank you very much, certainly from our group. And Tameside's gain is absolutely our loss, Emma. So thank you for everything. I'm really glad that we're getting under Councillor Graves' skin, so much so that he's even mentioning it in his leader's report. I did want to ask a couple of points. You mentioned Winger Field. I think he meant Winger Worth, and he was referring to the Avenue Southern Access Road. I'd be grateful for a bit more detail on that. That was something we were quite concerned about as a previous administration, particularly in relation to the proposal not to have a roundabout at that location in Wingworth, which is deeply unpopular with the residents, and the District Council seeking to just have a signalised junction on one of the most busy roads that's constantly at a standstill. So I appreciate you might not have the detail now, but any further information around the administration's approach to that issue would be very gratefully received. He also mentioned potholes and repeated statistics that we don't recognise at all. But I'd ask him whether he agrees with his own councillor Millward, who recently said that we should deprioritise road repairs in favour of nudging people onto the trains, and whether he believes that's evidence of the nanny state in action. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Yes, I'll find out more information about Wingerworth. As far as potholes, we are committed to filling potholes, and that is our policy, and I believe that we've achieved that.
Thank you. You've managed to sneak in 2 questions, but did you want to ask a supplementary question? Thank you. Councillor Major.
Thank you, Chairman. I know the leader's not a detailed person, but when he mentioned his triumph of getting funding to support the building of 1,400 homes, did he check how many of these were being built on the Greenbelt? I wonder if you could tell me.
Mr Graves.
I haven't got that information, but Councillor Major, I will get that for you.
Would you? I didn't think it was appropriate. Yeah, Councillor Smith, sorry.
Yeah, just as I said on the phone to Ed Fordham, apologise about my comment to him. Hope now we can bury the hatchets with the comment and that we can move forward to make Chesterfield a far better place for the residents.
And that wasn't a question. Thank you. Questions, please. Councillor Kinsella.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd also like to just add my thanks to Emma Alexander. I know we're a small group, small, perfectly formed, and we are a group, which is an improvement on the last 4 years. So, but certainly as a sole councillor and as a small group, Emma has always been very supportive, has always been willing to listen, has been responsive in our requests. So I'd like to thank her for all that she's done for us and for the council, and to wish her well going forward. So thank you for all your help. Councillor Graves in his address spoke about SEND, and probably like a lot of you, we get a lot of issues in our mailbags around people asking for our help to take their case on, and I've already had 2 in the last couple of weeks. Fortunately, they have been resolved. And Councillor Graves talks about the improvements. He's also said there are too many people in the SEND system, and my wife's a teacher and she's worked in the SEND environment, so this is kind of a little bit personal to me as well. He went on to say there are reasons that the reasons for this, but there are too many people in the SEND system, is that schools, the suggestion is that schools somehow are incentivised to seek SEND money, which clearly is wrong and is besmirches many of our school leaders. Councillor Graves has also spoken about kind of steered into the kind of area of child psychology by saying that that there's a degree of overdiagnosis of these children. Again, you know, those parents that I speak to, those parents and carers, it leaves me feeling uncomfortable and embarrassed to repeat those allegations. So I just want to know, really, does his understanding of the SEND system, as he set out, add or detract from the improvement plan that the council are implementing?
Thank you. Councillor Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't realise actually that questions from other spheres, apart from this council chamber, were allowed to be brought into questions. If Councillor Ginsella wants to talk to me about my opinion on particular matters, then I would suggest that he comes to talk to me rather than using this this theatre.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, the reminder is that the question should be related to the Councillor's report. Directly arising.
As the councillor was referring to the SEND and the progress at SEND, I just thought it was relevant as council leader for him to comment on that. But I'm suitably admonished.
Thank you. No further questions on Councillor Graves' report. So moving on to item 7, public questions. And the first question, item 7, public questions. Printed on pages 41 and 42. Questions and answers have been published on the Council's website. For viewers at home, a link is available on the YouTube channel. Answers were published yesterday, and this will give an opportunity now to hear all supplementary questions within the 30 minutes allowed for public questions. The first question from Ms M Dwyer to Councillor C Wood, Cabinet Member for Net Zero and the Environment. I've been advised that you would like to ask a supplementary question. If so, could you come down to the microphone, please?
Thank you for the answer that I received to my original question, Councillor Woods. However, the statistics that were included in this answer, like all statistics, can be and were cherry-picked. If net zero is not reached, climate change impacts will cost the UK far more by 2050 than the investment needed for net zero now, if we do things properly now. The House of Lords Library projects that these damages could increase from 1.1% of GDP to 3.3 by 2050 under current policies. The Climate Change Committee estimates that reaching net zero by 2050 has a manageable cost, possibly even a positive impact on the economy. And the ongoing costs of climate inaction would be significantly and will be significantly higher than the costs of transition, not just economic costs. You say that the Centre for Policy Studies notes that poorly managed decarbonisation risks widening inequality. Well, I would ask that you don't manage it poorly. Surely it's your job to manage it well, so that there's no widening of inequality. Nobody wants that. This is in the interests of all the residents of Derbyshire and all those not even born or thought about yet. And if, as you say, there's not enough scrutiny of the zero policy framework, please scrutinise it as an authority. Not abandon it, leaving us all vulnerable to the impacts of climate change.
Can we get to the question? I haven't yet heard a question in the supplementary.
This is the question here. So my question is, will you think long term? 2050, climate doesn't change in a minute or a day, it's years, as we know. Will you think long term, not short term, as your answer demonstrates to me that you are doing? This is the most important issue for the world. Please think like that. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, your response, please. You can stay there.
I'm sorry, I'm still a bit puzzled to understand the question. Could you try and explain it a bit more so I can answer?
Well, my question to you is, I presume this council at the moment, from your answer, is saying that you're abandoning the climate policy framework that this authority has been working to. What you need to do as a council is up it, not dissolve it to some extent. And it's so short term, I'm asking you, will you please change your mind on this and think long term and see 2050 as the time you're working towards, not the next 4 or 5 years, because that's just politics. Is that okay?
Councillor Wood.
I think I've got the question. So you paraphrased, you're saying we're abandoning... Sorry, you're moving away from... Well, we are not engaged in national politics here. We are determinedly giving good, common sense, economically sustainable answers and policies for all our constituents. As we are demonstrating by various policies on the environment, to improve clean air, to improve flood resilience, energy efficiency in homes, to save money for residents and so forth. So I don't recognise or accept your assumptions and propositions about the direction of this administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. The second question is from Mr G Spicer to Councillor C Hill, Cabinet Member for Potholes, Transport and Highways. Come down, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hill, for your reply. It is quite clear from your reply that you are fully aware of the flags attached to lampposts, and by not committing to their removal, you are...
There's no question here. It's quite clear. Can we get to the question, please?
Yeah, I will get to the question in a minute.
Yeah. Excuse me, sorry. Excuse me, the questioner is allowed to set the approach to the question.
Yeah, I'm just setting the approach.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Excuse me. Members of the public, please cut them a bit of slack. Thank you.
Okay.
Code of conduct as councillors, and we've talked about tolerance today. We've got members of the public. We might not agree with some of the things that they're saying, but I think it's important that we show respect to the members of the public that come. It's clearly all over our code of conduct, Chairman, and I think every time one of them speaks, and before they manage to say the first sentence, we're getting a point of order, shouting them down. I get cutting for us. I love it when we're doing it to each other. But I think it's so disrespectful to do to a member of the public who's travelled here to raise something they really care about. We might not agree, but we should listen to them.
Thank you, Councillor, and you very expanded on my point of cutting them some slack, please. Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, right, thank you. You have set a precedent and given the green light for anyone to attach anything to street lights if they do not pose a danger. You say in your reply to my question, the council will assess to see if the flags pose a danger. My supplementary question is, how long will it take and how much will it cost to assess all the illegal flags that have been attached to lampposts on the Derbyshire highway network?
Thank you. And Councillor Hill, your response, please.
Thank you for travelling here today to ask this supplementary question. Firstly, the response that you've received is in line with the council's highway policy, and that has been in place before the Raise the Colour movement went up with the flags on the streetlights. So in regard to reporting the flags and going assessing the flags that are of danger, we will only assess the flags that are reported to us via our highways hub as dangerous to the public, and then it will be on a professional highways inspector-led inquiry into that flag whether or not he or she deems it, in their professional opinion, to be unsafe. But we are not going to be inspecting every single flag that's on the highways asset. It isn't beneficial to the highway service, it isn't beneficial time-wise or cost-wise. We will only be doing it if the inspectors deem it as unsafe themselves or if the public report that into us.
Thank you, Councillor Hill, and thank you for travelling in the question. Thank you. Question 3 from Mr Funnell as Chair of Moreton Parish Council to Councillor C Hill, Councillor Hill, Cabinet Member for Potholes, Transport and Highways, and you've obviously got a supplementary question. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to ask the question today regarding the
55 bus service through our village in Moreton. I'm here today to represent the parish council, the community, and the 650 villagers who signed a petition to try and get the bus reinstated. I hope you've all had time to read the question and the responses that I've received from Councillor Hill. It does beg lots of questions and lots of comments. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to restrict it to one question. What the response doesn't say is the bus company wanted £250,000 to reinstate a bus service that covers 3 bus stops and 10 minutes to the route. The obvious answer to this question is not investment, it's not grants, not subsidy, it's a change in the timetable of 10 minutes. No extra buses, no extra drivers, no extra cost. So the question to Councillor Hill, what dialogue did you have with the bus company and why haven't you adopted a timetable change?
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, John, for coming here today and asking a question to full council. After visiting Moreton Parish Council myself twice to have this discussion with yourself, other councillors and the parishioners, alongside Councillor Carol Wood and the local member for Moreton, we've discussed this several times at Moreton now, and we've also put a lot of legwork in at Derbyshire County Council with the assistance of the officers, myself, Councillor Wood and Darren as well. So we've spoken to different providers as well as the previous provider to get previous information, current providers of the 55 bus service and other providers. I don't want to say any names. We spoke to more than one bus company provider in the area and they all come back with the same message. The message is that the bus service runs at 55-minute intervals so that there's consistency in the timetable and also to allow the driver a 5-minute break in that time. The bus companies across Derbyshire have all said that they cannot alter a timetable to be longer than 55 minutes for an hour. It will push the times forward and it affects the commerciability of the service. It pushes it out and there's data that supports it, that people in the communities do not go and catch a bus at 11:10 and then go and catch it at 12:20. That's just not the way that bus services and bus companies run their timetables, and that there is data there to support it.
Very quickly. Sorry, there is no right of reply, but if you're very quick.
I would argue against that, and we have had that discussion. There are bus services across Derbyshire that operate on flexible timings. Some are 55, some are an hour, some go extend to even 2 hours. The main bus service from Chesterfield to Derby, the Comet, if you look at the timetable for the Comet, that is not on an equal flexibility. It ranges from an hour to an hour and 10 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure Councillor Hill will give it full attention. Thank you. Question 4 from Dr. C. Murray-Leslie to Councillor Wood, Cabinet Member for Net Zero and Environment. And I understand you have a supplementary question.
Is this working?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Wood, for your detailed reply to my question. I noted your reply refers almost exclusively to adaptation measures to the concerns I drew attention to. I would like to ask you, as a secondary question, what measures the Council is taking to reduce carbon emissions, which, after all, are the primary driver for all these ill effects, the flooding, the drought, the fires. For example, does it have a programme for retrofitting council property and to ensure that its replacement vehicles are electrically powered? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Dr. Murray-Leslie, for travelling here today. And may I belatedly also thank Ms Dyer for travelling here today for her question. So there are several points in there. What measures are we taking to actively reduce carbon? As I've stated previously, we are not adhering to legislative national agendas to do things like that. However, you mentioned other things. You talked about retrofitting properties. Now, I am on Bolsover District Council, and we have received there lots of funding to retrofit properties and have done so on our own social housing there. I'm aware that the Mayor is bringing forth a local retrofit policy, actually drafted by the pioneers at Bolsover District Council. It isn't something that we have remit to do for on housing in Derbyshire County Council. Nevertheless, I'm sure that where it's appropriate on our own properties, subject to budget, it is something. But in the interest of common sense, the measures we will be taking will be directed at our residents, their livelihoods, their health and well-being in Derbyshire. So that's retrofit. You mentioned about will we be doing electric vehicles? We look to reduce air pollution for our own health and well-being. My two sons have asthma. So naturally, we will be looking at our fleet policy to see where efficiencies can be made across the board for low emission vehicles of whatever type. We are not hamstrung by national policies that specify solutions without taking full account of what is the actual problem we're here to solve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
Yes, question 5 from Ms L Hopkinson to Councillor Wood, Cabinet Member for Net Zero Environment. I understand you were supplementary, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and hello, Councillor Wood. So my question's behind me, hopefully. There's overwhelming scientific evidence that climate change is real, human-caused and impacting residents of Derbyshire already. And we've already heard that the costs of taking action to mitigate climate change are far lower than the costs of inaction. So a consultation would enable Derbyshire residents to have their say about the climate actions the Council is proposing and could provide ideas for cost-effective solutions the Council could deliver to decarbonise and provide multiple benefits to health, safety, lowering bills and the environment. So my follow-up question is about the scope of the replacement climate strategy, which Councillor Wood says in her reply will include improving resilience to severe weather. But I note that in changes to the Council's strategic objectives, part of a later agenda item for this meeting, the action to develop climate change adaptation and resilience strategy plans and frameworks has been deleted. Does this mean that the Council will continue to develop climate adaptation and resilience strategies, but just doesn't want to refer to it as that? Or can she confirm that this Council is still interested in making Derbyshire more resilient to climate change? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, please.
So again, thank you for coming here today. You are conflating issues. I will restate what I said to the previous questioner, that we are taking common sense approach to policies specifically for our residents and businesses in Derbyshire. That is our remit as local Derbyshire councillors. We are not here to deliver national agendas, and so our actions will be referred to and purely about the appropriate measures which you referred to as health, well-being, economy of bills by supporting policies to retrofit properties where appropriate from the mayor or for local borough councils and so on. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thank you, Councillor Wood. Question 6 was from Ms G Blair. I don't think she's present. Is that correct? No. Thank you. So I'm now going to move on to item 8, petitions. Don't believe we've got any forward. No. So moving to item 9. To consider the appointment of honorary alderman and alderwoman. As this report seeks only to agree nominations in principle and we have a heavy agenda, it would be grateful if members would restrict their comments and tributes to the ceremonial meeting that we propose to hold in December. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Graves is proposing and a seconder. Councillor Reaney seconding. Are there any questions or contributions from members? Councillor Fordham, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to speak on this because I think it's really important. We're not here, and I say this with as much humour as I can muster, to judge the decisions of these individuals. That would be a long court case indeed, and a very unhappy one. We're here to recognise their contribution. It's possible across parties to have differing opinions and to respect the work people have done. And I just want to pick out a few key elements as to why this list of people from the previous quadrennium of councillors has been put forward. Councillor David Allen and Robin Parkinson. They served 100 years between them on this authority. Almost.
Excuse me, Councillor Ford, I did ask if we can pay tributes at the ceremonial meeting. We have got, as I say, we've got a really busy agenda.
I will, Chair, but I just want to explain why I wrote the letter to the leader putting these people on the list and not the other councillors.
Can you be brief as possible, please?
Yeah. I think serving 50 years on an authority is a contribution in and of itself. The leader and deputy leader, Barry Lewis and Simon Spencer, I jokingly referred, one was partially poor hearing, and Barry used to joke, when Simon's speaking, I like my deaf ear to be next to him. In putting Ron Mahaley forward, not many footballers for Chesterfield Football Club get an honorary alderman. And the club are very excited. I'm not sure Ron's record as a footballer was better than his record as a councillor, but it's important to him and to the club, and I think we do a lot. Sending out a message for Jean Innes. She lost her husband when she was a councillor in the last 4 years. When you're part of a political couple, she literally lost her prop. She served for decades as a shop steward for Usdaw, and without recognition. I think it's important we do that. Barry Bingham.
I'm sorry, you are exceeding what I asked for, please.
We need to know who they are, Chair.
Yeah, but
I think it's important. They're not just names.
We're going to have an occasion where they're going to be recognised and tributes can be paid then. So maybe you could hold it over, please.
Well, can I just make the final point then, Chair? And I will finish. Barry Bingham, I think the only councillor ever to release a vinyl rock record in the UK, in Italy, in Japan and the USA. Thank you for your tolerance.
Thank you, Councillor Day. I'm sure you'll be mindful of what I've asked for, please.
Paying tributes, but they all are very deserving. I actually just wanted to pay a bit of tribute to the Reform Group because I recognise that there are a number of your members on this list for obvious reasons, but it is a good thing that you're continuing this tradition, and I want to say thank you for doing that because I think all of those members are very well deserving and appreciate that they're not your members, but grateful for you to support in doing that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Graves, do you wish to respond to close?
Recommendations as printed.
Thank you. Let's move to the vote, please. We've comfortably exceeded 2/3 of the vote, so that has been approved. Moving on now to item 10, change of date for the annual meeting. Item 10, Councillor Graves to move the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to move the recommendations as printed.
Thank you. And could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Rini. Are there any questions or contributions from members? Thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? And that's been approved. Thank you. Item 11 is changes to committee memberships. Councillor Abbott to move the report, please. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to move the recommendations set out in the report for some changes to the Reform Group's membership of committees, as set out on page 52 of the agenda, and to one other recommendation, which is that Councillor Stuart Bent replaces Councillor Sarah Rini as member of the People's Scrutiny Committee.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rini. Are there any questions or contributions from members, please? Councillor Gourlay.
Yes, I just want, having read through the paper and searched in vain on the Derbyshire County Council website, who is the Reform UK Group business leader?
I'll allow Councillor Abbott to answer that when she closes. Councillor Kinsella, please.
Yeah, I notice now Councillor Morgan has given apologies for this meeting, so that's he's attended one of 7 meetings. We all know how much work being a councillor, being an effective councillor involves. I just wonder what censure action will result as a result of this councillor missing so many council meetings.
Excuse me. It's not a question. Councillor Hatchett, please.
What do I do?
Just speak. Just
right, sorry.
Stand and speak. Stand.
So I just wanted to see if I'd heard you right, that you've made an additional change to the changes that are set out in this paper. Is that permissible?
Councillor Abbott, do you want to respond
there? Change, as well as the ones that was already in, and that was the Sarah Rini for the People's Scrutiny, as she works and she couldn't make it. So Stuart Bent.
Are you allowed to change papers?
I'm advised that it's okay, it's in line with the other changes. So, Councillor Abbott, do you wish to close? Shall we move to the vote?
I'd just like to move the motion that's just been read.
Right, with no other speakers, we're going to move to the vote, please. Councillor Gourlay, point of order.
From the paper, who is the Reform UK Group business manager, and what role do they play in the Constitution to bring forward a motion of this kind?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not really sure what he's referring to, the business manager. I mean, we've got quite a few businessmen and business ladies on our group, but I didn't realise there was an official title for somebody within the council.
It's because my report talks about
that. Yes. Yeah. I'm advised that we're perfectly entitled to move, as we have done, to make these changes. As has been advised, it's the, as people's other commitments have arisen, we needed to do this, and it's not a new thing. I'm also advised, there's precedent. Right, can we move to the vote, please? And that is carried. Thank you. It's been approved. Moving to item 12, report of the chairman of the Governance, Ethics and Standards Committee. Councillor Whitbread Councillor Whitbread to move the report, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor. I was hoping for a bit more pumping me report today, but I'm struggling a bit, so please bear with me. I'll be doing my best. On the 4th of May 2025, the people elected each and every one of us here today. For many, it was the first foray into politics. Others were returned, having served their constituents with dedication and pride for years. To all members present here today, I offer my heartfelt congratulations and wish you all a successful term, serving both your local residents and the wider Derbyshire population. Whether you stood for the sake of your families, your communities, your county or your country, whatever it is that drives you, you have, each of you, determined and sworn that you will do whatever you can to make a positive difference to the people we lead, love and serve. I have faith that by working together over the course of this council, we will do exactly that. On the 21st of May 2025, this council appointed me to be the chairman of the Governance, Ethics and Standards Committee, a post I'm truly honoured to hold. I hope that all members of staff will feel comfortable coming to me with their ideas, advice, complaints or compliments, and I assure you that from whichever quarter they are received, it will be in good faith. Alongside me on the committee, we have our Vice Chair, Councillor Cliff. We have Councillors Bent. Councillor Bent?
Behind
you. Sorry, he's behind you. Sorry, thank you. Councillor Fordham, Councillor Foster, Councillor Harvey. We have Councillor Hatchett, Councillor Hodgson, and Councillor Moselar. Yeah. We also have the privilege to have Mr. Ian Orford, who serves at the committee as an advisory role only, not to vote. I would like to offer the council a reminder of sorts. All of you here have boldly put your head above the parapet. Those willing to raise their heads are always the first to be targeted. They're also the first to be followed. It's easy to forget that prominence goes both ways. From outside of the trench, all eyes will be fixed on your every weakness, fault and flaw, determined to undermine you and all that you stand to bring about. The pressure is on to deliver, to be right and infallible. That's a hard task, an impossible task even, but it's worth striving for all the same. The council's credibility and authority depend on it. On the other side of the coin, we have those stood within the trench, looking up for you for leadership. As a guiding light and an example to follow, it is crucial that while ever you hold the elevated position, your conduct, character, ethics and standards are exemplary. I expect nothing less from every last one of you here. And never mind me, we're here to serve the people and they are owed nothing less than our very best. I take great pleasure in acknowledging the efforts and the work done by our predecessors on the Governance, Ethics and Standards Committee, particularly to the former chair and vice chairs, Councillors Stuart Swan and Robert Flatt, and again to our ongoing independent person, Mr. Ian Orford. I'd also like to acknowledge the work of councillors present here today who worked on the committee over the last year, those being Councillors Gruby, Hobson and Major. I'd like to thank you for the work you did last year. I hope that you'll maintain an interest in the Governance, Ethics and Standard Committee and seek opportunities to assist whenever cross-party working groups are arranged. Having experienced former members on the committee can only benefit the group as a whole. On becoming chair, I've noted that during the last year, the previous committee kept the council's constitution, structures and governance under review to ensure that they remain fit for purpose in the ever-changing political and legal landscape we find ourselves in. The previous committee also had oversight of the local elections held in May, as great success across the county. The elections were conducted smoothly and without any constitutional challenge. The current committee will continue its important work ensuring that the council, its members, its officers and its staff maintain the highest standards across the board and wherever possible continue to strengthen the standards already in place. Thank you all for your time. I move the recommendations on page 56 of the agenda pack.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitbread. And could I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Cliff, were you going to speak in support? No, you're happy with that? Right, okay. Thank you for the second. Record that as Councillor Groves and Councillor Reaney. Yep, thank you. Questions or contributions? Councillor Fordham, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's my 5th year on this authority. I'm a little bit worried and gently scared at how often controlling groups, and this is true of the last controlling group, every time something occurred they didn't like, they would change the constitution. Questions from councillors used to be at the beginning of the agenda. When I discovered this and tabled some, they moved it to the end. When I realised you could table motions fairly easily, they moved them to the end. When the chairman was challenged on a few occasions, they changed the rules so that the chairman's decision could not be challenged under the constitution. There are a whole series of negative changes to the constitution. As you take control, it's clear the relationships have changed. We have an opportunity to change them for the better, and I understand with questions from the public, for example, you're trying to get through more, and I think that's admirable, but I think there are things we can do as groups from all sides to improve the process, to make it easier, to make it smoother, and that might be a conversation at this committee, I think, that actually there's an opportunity to say, how do we make it better? How do we get more people? Putting up the question on the screen, I think it's constructive. It doesn't have to be in the constitution, it could just be our own best practice. But I do think there, as you take control and you decide how you want to work, people are asking questions because they'd like to know the answer. They're not necessarily objecting to your answer. And there must be a way whereby people can say, what are you planning to do? And it's less confrontational. And I think this committee could be the answer to that. And I'd like to congratulate my constituent and Councillor for chairing the committee.
Thank you. And Councillor Somerville.
I'd just like to echo a lot of that. It was a sort of low point when I found out that the Conservative group in the last council were trying to cancel the first of elections with the government nationally. Additionally, it feels like a lot of members seem to be filibustering their own sort of questions later. So just sort of sometimes brevity would be great. So.
Thank you. No further questions. Councillor Whitbread, do you wish to say any more before we move to vote? No. Okay. Okay, can we move to the vote, please? Thank you. That's been approved. And we can move on to item 13, revisions to the Constitution, Code of Good Practice on Corporate Governance for Statutory Officers. I can call on Councillor Whitbread to move the report, please.
Certainly can, Chair. Thank you. Thank you once again, and sorry. This report seeks the Council's approval on amendments to the Constitution to reflect certain provisions on the Code of Good Practice for Corporate Governance for Statutory Officers. To those less familiar, the Golden Triangle, noted within the report, relates to the 3 statutory officers responsible for the governance of this authority. Those being our Head of Paid Service, Ms Alexander, our Chief Finance Officer, Mr Kenyon, and our Monitoring Officer, Ms Parrington. If I may at this point, I'd like to formally congratulate Ms Alexander on the new appointment at Tameside Metropolitan Borough Council and thank her for her efforts as Head of Paid Service during her years here at Derbyshire County Council. Bravo and thank you. These 3 statutory officers are responsible for ensuring the good administrative, financial and ethical governance of a local authority. As starkly outlined in the report, where these 3 corners of the triangle fail to communicate or cooperate, councils and wider authorities suffer or worse fail. The Code of Good Practice has been prepared by the Society of Local Authority the Society of Local Authority Chief Executives, SOLIS, the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, SIPFA, and the Lawyers in Local Government, the LLG. It provides advice and sets expectations for those within the Golden Triangle, ensuring these 3 statutory officers work effectively together and successfully carry out their respective statutory obligations. The key principles noted within the report are referred to as the 7 standards of the Golden Triangle. Those being to understand governance, act wisely, lead ethically, act effectively, resource the roles, build resilience and deliver sound decision making. Things I'm sure we can all agree are a good idea. As part of an ongoing effort to strengthen and continuously improve our governance, policies and practices. Sorry. Thank you. Lozenge for the record. As part of an ongoing effort to strengthen and continuously improve our governance policies and practices, an assessment was carried out to determine what is already in place and how and where improvements could be made. At its meeting on the 30th of September, the Governance, Ethics and Standards Committee agreed to support the adoption of the Code of Good Practice on Corporate Governance for Statutory Officers, and also agreed the Constitution should be amended to reflect certain provisions in the Code. These amendments are set out in Appendix 3 to the report, and Council is asked to formally approve them today. I hope that I move the recommendations on page 65 of the agenda pack.
Thank you, and thank you for soldiering through it. Could I have a seconder, please?
Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Reaney. Anybody, any questions or contributions? Yeah, we'll move to the vote. Thank you. And that's been carried. Thank you. It's approved. Now we move on to item 14, revisions to the Constitution and Members Allowance Scheme, Chairman of the Council role. As myself and my deputy have declared interest in this item, we will be leaving the room. I therefore move that a new chair is elected for this item. Are there any nominations for this? And a seconder? Thank you. And a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Graves. Can we vote on that with a show of hands? Are we all content? Thank you. Councillor Reaney, if you'd like to come forward, take the chair. Yes, I'm going. I'm waiting for it to get here. Waiting for Joe.
Hello, everybody. Councillor Whitbread, can you please move to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you again, one and all. This has been my last report to Council today, and I sincerely hope that the proposals made will be accepted as reasonable, responsible and respectful solution to recent changes made by this administration. The report contains numerous changes and amendments to the Constitution, namely the removal of the civic chairman of Derbyshire County Council role and the alterations to the titles and responsibilities of the intended chairman to the County Council and vice chairman of Derbyshire County Council. Changes are proposed throughout the Constitution where the former roles were referenced. These proposed amendments are set out in paragraphs 2.2 and 2.3 of the report. It is proposed that Council approve all the noted changes today, with the exception of amendments to Appendix 3, those relating to the Council procedural rules. The reason for the exception comes from Appendix 3 of the Constitution itself, Standing Order 24.3. The Council procedure rules cannot be approved by Council at the first meeting and must be adjourned without debate to the next meeting. They will therefore be brought back for approval next time. In addition, the report seeks the agreement of Council to make changes to the Members' Allowance Scheme. This is so that the two roles may receive an appropriate special responsibility allowance for their newly appointed duties. The Council is only permitted to make changes to the allowances paid to the Chairman and Vice Chairman after consideration of a report from the Independent Remuneration Panel. The panel has considered these roles and prepared a report setting out the recommendations. Members will see that from the report at Appendix 3 that the panel recommends increasing the chairman's allowance from 25% to 30% of the leader's allowance, to recognise that the combined civic and council chairman role carries increased workloads and responsibilities, and also increasing the vice chairman's allowance from 6% to 10% of the leader's allowance, to recognise the position has responsibility of chairing meetings of council in the absence of the chairman. The panel also recommend that these increases should be backdated to the 21st of May 2025 to recognise that the post holders have been carrying out their roles since the date of the annual meeting. I'd like to thank our Chair and Vice Chair for their efforts so far this year, and I hope all present today will appreciate the additional work required in order to make these savings possible. I move the recommendations on pages 97 and 98. Thank you, Chair.
Could I have a seconder for that, please? We've got Councillor Hewlett. Thank you.
It's second, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Reaney. Councillor Graves, have you got a question?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something that Councillor Lewis said. He's right in what he said in the report about the increase in the allowance. However, it is actually overall a decrease because there were 2 allowances and now there's just 1. I just wanted to make that clear. And that was one of the things that I brought in at the very beginning of this term.
Councillor Gawley, please. Got a question?
The Conservative group have allowed their members a free vote on this issue, and I shall be voting against any rise in allowances. I realise that I have a minority view amongst councillors, and I have a somewhat extreme view of allowances. But I believe by voicing that view, I moderate the views of other grasping councillors who wish to raise allowances. The independent remuneration panel is a cloak. It is a falsehood behind which political parties hide their urge to feather their own nests. I urge the leader of the Reform Group, if he believes this is the right thing to do, to turn around to his colleagues and offer them a free vote on this issue so that they themselves can decide ethically what is the right thing to do and can tell their neighbours the reasons why they did it. I have always voted against rises in allowances, and I will vote against this one.
Councillor Reaney.
I'd like to thank Councillor Gawley for his points. I'd just like to bring people's attention to Appendix 1 and remind him that the allowances was set by an independent panel and not by us. And under Appendix 1, it points out that we're actually saving £7,536 a year by these changes. This is not an increase, it's actually a decrease. Thank you.
Councillor Wood.
And I'd just like to also point out that the introduction of these roles previously by the Conservative administration was explained to us by our officers when we inquired about it, as of course we did, doing our due diligence, that this was a complete anomaly and hadn't been seen in other places. So it would be completely normal for us to rationalise. Thank you.
Councillor Dale, hello.
can't resist but say that's completely false. There are several other councils across the country who do it that way. I'm not suggesting it's the right way, and by all means, you're a new administration, you want to do things differently. I would just point out that in the first couple of weeks of the new Reform administration, they put out a press release, I think, that said that they'd saved 80,000 a year by making the changes. 80,000 in the first couple of weeks. It very, very quickly, within hours, was debunked by our local democracy reporting service to be completely false. And I would just highlight that this makes it even more false because it was reliant upon the chair foregoing the second allowance, whereas this report does backdate that allowance to the beginning of the year. So the savings that you praised making in the first couple of weeks of getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're not hearing anything else from Doge or any other aspect of how you are making savings. That said, I'll be supporting it because I think it's the right decision to make. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Whitbread, would you like to close, please?
Chair. Yeah, just to reiterate, we are heading in the right direction. The money is, we are making savings. Perhaps through naivety, we've amalgamated two roles, two very important roles, and there's an awful lot of work that Councillor, that the Chair and Vice Chair are doing now that we wouldn't, we perhaps underestimated. I think it's only right to be fair, to do the right thing, and to pay recompense for what they've done. In terms of where the savings may have come from, will be. I don't know about this 80,000, Councillor Dale, but there were formerly cabinet support posts, which would have been paid through at £7,500 per post per year. We now have one, so that may have been where the numbers come from. But I'm afraid I haven't seen the 80,000. So sorry about that. Thank you. But no, the savings. We are making savings. Okay, we are making savings. That's the right grasp. So, yeah, sorry, I closed at that. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will now move to the vote, please. Thank you very much, everybody. That vote is carried. Thank you.
So if you can ask for the Chair and Vice Chair to be brought back.
Yes, could we ask for the Vice Chair and the Chairman to be brought back in, please?
Thank you, Councillor Reaney, for doing that. Councillor Brown commented you'd obviously done a really good job from the applause. Thank you. Item 15 is the appointment of the Chief Executive. Simon Stevens has left the room. Councillor Graves to move the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not really going to speak too much on it. Obviously, there are some changes in here. Obviously, we've appointed Simon Stevens as the interim Chief Executive. We've changed the name from Managing Director to Chief Executive, which I think is more appropriate. And that's really the changes. So I move it to the vote, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Councillor Reid, second, please. Yeah, thank you. Any questions or contributions from members? Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much, Chair. We will be supporting the decision, and we are sure that Simon Stevens will do a fantastic job in the interim post. I do just want to highlight the issue of pay. both for this role and for the new permanent chief executive that we're about to recruit, which has been agreed in the report there as 181,000 up to a scale of over 200,000. Now, our group fundamentally believe that if we want to attract the brightest and the best and retain the brightest and the best, we do have to have proper remuneration for that role. But I do just want to highlight the rank hypocrisy from the Reform administration. During the election, they put these leaflets out, which listed among the ways that Derbyshire County Council was wasting your money as the managing director earning 176,000. We have a report before us here today that's seeking to appoint a role to £180,000. Now, as I say, I'm not personally against that. I believe in the right remuneration for the best possible officers. But this administration stood on a platform, an electoral mandate, to remove these sorts of pay scales for officers. And yet what we're seeing is rank hypocrisy. You know, and another leaflet, I think this, well, the same leaflet actually, but elsewhere, it says, no more 200k salaries. What are we getting? We're getting a potentially 200k salary for a position in this council. As I say, you know, it's just rank hypocrisy. It's a case of Reform saying one thing to the electorate and then doing a completely different thing when they get into power. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Fordham, please.
I was about to examine my conscience because I think I agree with Councillor Dale. I was being slightly chippy earlier when we did the leaders' questions, so I just want to pick up on Emma's contribution if I can. And as many of you know, I run a bookstall, and I just wanted to try and surmise her term in office as I saw it. We went from great expectations, we went through bleak house, hard times came along pretty quickly, but she now exits as we get to a tale of two unitary cities. You've been outstanding. You have been a chief officer for all councillors, not just for officers or for groups, and you've found time for individual councillors. That's quite hard to do. I've said to Highways team quite often, if the chief exec can visit each of our divisions and talk about the problems, then the Highways team could too. Emma led by example at some of the most difficult times for this authority, and I'll be forever grateful. She and I have a mutual friend, Dickens' last book, and he said to me, she's a good one, and he was right. One thing in particular, however, I just think, Councillor Graves, it would have been appropriate, proper and constitutional to have announced the Chief Exec's departure at the meeting of last council. When you stood up and gave your leaders' report, you knew, and it fell, I thought, slightly unfairly upon the Chief Executive to ring us individually and tell us, you have a duty to report key decisions here. You did not. The Chief Executive leaving should have been reported here. We are rightly making a decision to appoint an interim and to recruit a replacement. But equally, the Constitution is clear. It's not just arrivals, it's departures as well.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhill.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, just to welcome on behalf of the Labour councillors for this interim appointment. We're fully supportive. We particularly welcome the change in the title, which I think is a return to the rightful title after some of the chicanery of the last administration, but really rising mainly just to pay tribute to Emma on behalf of the Labour group, the previous Labour group from the last council as well as this one, for your efforts and for all that you've done for our group in particular. I think you are leaving with a record to be proud of, particularly your work in the creation of MCA and hopefully the opportunities that will create for this area. I think definitely Derbyshire's loss is Tameside's gain, and I know many councillors in Tameside and I've already told them that they've got a great chief exec in you, and I think it's all down to because you're a High Peak resident, so I clearly think there is something in the High Peak water that makes that so. Wish you all the best.
Thank you. And Councillor George, please.
Thank you very much on behalf of the independent group and myself personally as a councillor for the last 5-6 years. Then I want to thank Emma for the role that she's played in bringing the council on and managing some extremely difficult times very diplomatically, and wish her all the best in her new role. Really interesting to hear back from her at some time how Tameside compares to Derbyshire. They're two extremely different beasts, but we certainly wish you well, and we wish Simon well in his new role as well, and have every every confidence in him continuing to bring this council together and take us forward. Thank you.
Councillor Gourlay.
Yeah, I think every Conservative believes that staff members of DCC should be paid the market rate, no more, no less. But I got some of those leaflets in Chapel and High Peak, Chapel and Hope Valley, in March and April, and they're simply a lie. They've made a promise from you, collectively, as councillors, that you are not carrying out. I just wonder, how do you look yourselves in the mirror in the morning? You've lied to the electorate. You didn't make many pledges, but this was one of them, and you've just thrown it away. What do your neighbours think of you?
There are no more speakers. Councillor Graves, would you like to respond, please?
Yes, I will respond to some of them. I'm very interested that our leaflets are hitting the mark. Whoever designed them really upset the party on my right. Councillor Fordham, I did see your email. I also saw that your trial by social media, by you putting it on social media, something that I think is quite unusual. I don't understand why you want to play out issues within the council chamber out on social media before you've actually sent the email to us. Now, if I just give you a little bit of a lesson, Emma wasn't confirmed by Tameside on that date, all right? They hadn't confirmed that she was going to take up that position. Secondly, I understand that Emma tried to contact you on that day to tell you that this was happening, okay? And I believe that happened. And I had not received, by that date, a resignation letter from the managing director. It would have been highly inappropriate for me to come to this meeting on that date and make an announcement that wasn't actually true at that point. So, Councillor Fordham, I think you should consider what you put on social media. I think you should consider what letters you send out to people before you send them. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to... Thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? We're closing the vote, and that's been approved. Thank you very much. Could somebody ask Simon Stevens to come back in, please?
One of the officers. Get one of the officers on that side.
Before we move on to the next item, I'd just like to record the Council's gratitude to Emma Alexander for her service and wish her well in the new role. Thank you, Emma. Thank you. And now moving to item 16, performance monitoring and budget monitoring forecast outturn. Councillor Lawson to move the report, please. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Council. The purpose of the report is to provide an update on performance against Council Plan priorities and financial performance against the 2025 revenue budget. This is at Q1 for the current financial year, that is the period to 30th of June. In relation to progress against the 24 strategic objectives outlined in the 2025-29 Council Plan, it shows that 19 have good progress, with 4 requiring review and 1 requiring action. The financial forecast for 25-26 is an overspend of 1.3 million. This is made up of an overspend in children's services, which is offset by underspends in corporate budgets and other minor variances across a number of services. The report provides a detailed analysis across services of the financial position. The Council, of course, continues to face financial risks in a number of areas, including social care, particularly children's services. And the financial position will continue to be managed through the financial year and reported to Cabinet and Council through quarterly reports. I just want to say a few points. Obviously, this is a much better result than we could have probably hoped for. Although it is an overspend, it's an overspend of something like, I think it works out at 0.2%. So a significant improvement. Hopefully you'll all agree. But obviously we're not out of the woods. There are still significant challenges that lie ahead on a day-to-day basis, and the Council is working through those challenges in a professional manner. Obviously, I don't take credit for this result. I've only been in this role for a few months. I think our officers really need to take most of the credit for this, and certainly I commend, as others have said, our managing director for all the hard work that she's put in, certainly during my short tenure in this office. So I'll add my thanks for her support and professional advice. So I move that the Council is asked to approve the recommendations as set out in the report on page 124.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
Chair.
Councillor Rini. And moving to questions and contributions, Councillor Major, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I thank Councillor Lawson for the presentation, speaking through the report, and thank you for the words he made at the last council meeting about the good shape we left the council in. And obviously Q1 is still a good representation of the state of what our budget would have been. What concerns me, Chairman, is that we've done nothing for 6 months. We've had barely any meetings. Meetings have been cancelled, go to scrutiny, work programmes have gone, no sign of DOGE. I don't even know what DOGE stands for anymore, because if it's government efficiency, it's definitely not being efficient, waiting 6 months before it even does anything. And we've had a scrapping of the pledge to deal with high salaries of chief officers. We've definitely not fixed any potholes. From my drive up today, so I don't know how you can claim that. And I'm really worried because we need to deliver efficiencies. We need to streamline the council. Otherwise, we're going to put vital services at risk, like libraries, bus services, supported bus travel for children, children's school meals. And it really concerns me that they're not doing anything in efficiency. David would know. This Del Boy economics going off about promises to somebody who sacked 20% of the workforce. And I really worry that we are going down the Del Boy route. Just say it and hopefully it'll all be all right at the end of the episode.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair, and I again thank Councillor Lawson for the presentation there. And certainly none of my comments are directed at him personally. I think he's doing a good job at trying to pick up what is a difficult role. Finance is always going to be a challenge in an organisation like ours. I do have some concerns that the savings made in other departments are masking what is still a very serious problem within children's social care and adult social care. And that's not a political point. That's been a national challenge that all councils have faced. And clearly we need to continue to redouble our efforts in terms of national lobbying around the challenges in children's social care, because I think that will continue to bite all councils. And in other years we may not be so fortunate as to have other savings and other windfalls, if you like, that help offset those challenges. And I don't want to sound like a broken record because I keep raising this and my colleague, Councillor Major, has already raised it. But honestly, where is Doge? Where is this programme of government efficiency? We keep hearing about it and I keep asking about it at Cabinet, but I'm not really getting any distinct, what does it mean tangibly? What is the actual approach going to deliver? What can residents expect by this Doge approach? We're nearly 6 months in now and we're not really seeing anything other than the One Council savings programme that you essentially inherited from us. That was our programme and we were delivering it and the election happened and you inherited it. So I'm still yet to see what tangibly is going to be different about the Doge approach. We've asked whether the national reform Doge team led by Zia Youssef will be visiting and I think the last answer I had was who knows? It may not even happen. And I do wonder if we're going to go the way of Kent actually. Kent have recently been in the Financial Times, quoted as being very likely now to raise council tax. And one of your own colleagues, a cabinet member down in Kent, said, everyone thought we'd come in and there were going to be these huge costs we could cut away, but there just aren't. And I think that's the reality that all of you are reaching. You made these big, bold pledges in your leaflets about cutting away all of these things. And the reality is actually running councils is a lot harder than any of you appreciated. And it's certainly not as easy as what you've made it out to be. And there are lots of costs that you can't cut. And so I am predicting we're probably going to end up with a discussion around a 5% increase. In fact, I think one of your members actually leaked it from your group meeting that you're going to blame it on the government, but you're going to go for a 5% council tax increase, which will be extremely interesting again to be debating. And the other point I'd just like to make is that the council plan it has been tinkered with in this document. And I find it baffling. Any new administration, if it were the Labour Party, for example, coming in and taking the control of the council, you would have a manifesto and you'd be buzzing with ideas and it would be a very different approach to the way that we would do it. And I would disagree with it, but I would respect you that you would immediately probably come in by now and you'd be changing the council plan. You'd be making big, bold changes. And what we've got is literally just a few wording tweaks. So we're 6 months in, we've got no sign of Doge, no indication of how you're going to make these savings, and you basically just adopted our council plan, the previous administration's priorities. And perhaps we should be flattered, but I was expecting something more from a new reform administration. They promised to reform Derbyshire, to reform will fix it, but what are you actually fixing? You're not doing anything. I think really what the reality is, you're avoiding controversy as much as you possibly can, because that's what Nigel's told you to do, so he can try and get into 10 Downing Street. But I would look forward to seeing some actual tangible things that Reform are going to do that's different, because I'm just not seeing anything from these papers at all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fordham.
I know the acoustics in here are terrible, but did I just miss the full-throated apology that Councillor Dale should have done for the last 8 years? My God. Some of these statistics backdate. Principal roads, where maintenance should be considered based on a survey, 30% failed, 45% non-principal. These are your statistics. It's your term in office. Percentage of residents unsatisfied, 47%. It's disgraceful. When you get to send, gosh, how you have the nerve to even stand, let alone speak. Suspensions from schools, 15%. 15% of our children suspended from schools. I can't work out whether, on page 141, whether selling buildings is a good or a bad thing. Now, the target is neither up or down, really. I can't work out in this whether, as we fail to do child protection conference certificates for 20% of the people who need it, percent of children who need social care reviews, 40% failure. These are lives of kids who don't get a second chance. And you credit them with adopting your plan, my God. I did make the mistake of reading this report in full, and there's not much about it that's cheerful. I do think the climate change changes. I can't work out, and I think this came from a member of the public, whether the deletions of the words leads to the cessation of the work. That's the bit I can't work out yet, and I'd be interested to see how that emerges. I'm delighted to see that we're going to do a review of suicide prevention strategy, and I'd like to thank the new administration for ensuring that's in there. a note of caution on page 109, the Derbyshire makers. Spending £250,000 and giving it to groups who aren't massively small brand, and Derbyshire has a good tourist model of small bed and breakfasts, little potters and community arts. And I'm not sure that investment is a wise one. I would ask you just to pause and looking at that. The affordable adult social care statistics are just grim, page 128, 129. I really would just sit down and read them. It's not happy reading, and some of it is desperately serious. Our education, health and care plan. Successful certificates issued, 19%, rising to 37, dropping back to 3%. The target was 22. 3% send children. That's 90%, 97% fail. And it's hugely serious, deeply embarrassing, and there are literally children at home waiting, parents turning to home education. We've done huge amounts of work of ensuring that rural, parish and village schools stay open. We need these kids in school, not at home waiting for the council to get its act together. In terms of removing climate change, page 148 is really very unclear whether we're deleting the pledge or stopping the work, and I really think you should get clear about that. It seems to me we're spending quite a few assets, and yet somehow, suddenly, there's a plan, though not articulated, about Elveston Castle and Gardens estate. To the Reform councillors who took to the media to say, you'll sell that castle over my dead body, I think you need to pause and reflect as local government is in tough times. Given the choice of a pupil referral, a library or a school, I'm sorry, the castle doesn't win. And pledging to keep the castle at all costs, whilst having statistics and work records like this, I think it reflects badly on all of us. There's been a little bit of teasing about the economics of the chief executive's role. One other, I think pledge 2, was you were going to reject the unnecessary government reorganisation of local government, but of course here it is in the plan, we're now supporting it. So we're not picking on you over the salary, we're picking on you over everything. There's one last point I think which is really important. There are 126 underlying actions in this report. They all underpin individual commitments and pledges. 99 are unchanged. Now, the previous administration was miserable to watch, to live through, and to pay your taxes towards. You have a chance to do something better. And if out of 126 pledges, you keep 99 of theirs, please don't do that to us. Of the 27, however, you're changing, adding or deleting, 16 are deletions. 11 you've changed. So genuinely, I read this report and I think, does this lay the foundations for the next 4 years? I hope it doesn't. I think if you are from your communities, if you get together as a group for what I'm sure would have been the first time after the election, to actually say what needs to happen, you can be more ambitious than this. To be successfully gently disappointing is not an achievement. You can include other groups. You could talk to other people. You could engage in the community. People are not seeing the change we need. The thing I say of the Labour government, it's not the government we need, and it's not the government we hoped for. Don't replicate that locally. There's a real chance to do better and more. And if this report is Q1, then you've got 3 more strikes to do better. I hope you will, and we'll hold you to account.
Thank you. Councillor Gourlay, please.
Councillor Lawson says that there are still significant challenges ahead. And I think we all see that. And Councillor Dale has said that he doesn't see where the efficiencies are coming from. But several of us who follow the library's issue can see the warning signs. There have been several questions in this chamber and in Cabinet. And if you pick through the answers to those questions, it's clear that when cuts are planned, that's where it's going to land. A 5% tax rise next May and the closure of public libraries.
Thank you. And Councillor Hatchett, please.
Okay. So first off, I'd like to thank everybody that has obviously worked very hard to produce this report. And I do welcome the news that there is only a small overspend predicted for this current year, which I understand is a considerable improvement on previous years, the position at the end of Q1 in previous years. So it seems like that's a good thing. I'm trusting that the savings can be achieved without an adverse impact on services to the people of Derbyshire. And I am concerned that although I'm sure staff will be working very hard to deliver all of these savings, I am concerned about whether continuing things like vacant posts is going to cause them a lot of stress as they bear the brunt of trying to maintain and even improve services with fewer resources. So I hope we're not storing up problems for the future with this budget by delivering an austerity programme or continuing to deliver an austerity programme, which means that expenditure is kicked down the line and results in higher costs in future years. Having said that, it does seem to me, from my limited experience, an encouraging report. And on that basis, I can support the recommendations A and C and D. Unfortunately, though, that leaves recommendation B, which is to agree the in-year adjustments to the strategic objectives and the council plan. Here, I'm happy to support most of the changes. I'm sure the new administration is trying to make its mark on what was left from the previous administration. But I have to disagree with Councillor Dale that the change to Strategic Objective 10 is not just a tweaking of the wording. The removal of climate change is more than that. This objective used to have the laudable ambition of addressing the causes and impacts of climate change, and now it has been watered down to focus on energy, which is just one aspect of that all-encompassing and life-threatening issue. The change weakens the plan's scope and ambition. The previous plan set out in the climate change strategy was an ambitious programme which included reducing emissions from the council's own estate, developing a low-carbon economy and embracing economic growth, which that would bring, decarbonising the domestic sector, delivering sustainable transport and travel, and reducing waste. Councillor Wood's responses to the public questions on this issue were warm words, but the reality is that this council is burying its head in the sand and pretending that the council does not have a duty to provide local leadership on the most important issue of our time. People who have had their homes and businesses flooded or threatened by fire, who live in houses which are either too cold or too hot, who are seeing the rapid depletion of nature, will not feel assured that this council has got their back. This administration's strategic objective is now stated to be solely concerned with energy. And while I can welcome the commitment to energy security and energy efficiency and clean energy, there is no detail as to what this might mean. And I fear, given that this administration is funded, or the party of this administration is funded by the fossil fuel industry, even this limited ambition will not result in effective measures to address the climate emergency and its increasingly severe impact on the lives of people in Derbyshire. For these reasons, I cannot agree with recommendation B, and I will be voting against this report.
Thank you. And Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank everyone that's worked really hard on, again, this in-year report and everything that's happened. I do want to address a couple of points from the honourable people over here on the Conservatives. You're right. Things might be coming slowly for you, or you think that's the way it is. But I think there's a key thing here, and I don't want to cede language. This is the in-year council report you're talking about and a whole bunch of things. It's your council plan. It's the year, in-year. These are reviews of this. Our council plan isn't due until, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, March, April next year. February is when we start to announce it. That's when it comes. That's our plan. I think there's a key differentiator here that we need to stop playing spin politics for the public on this, because the members over here know very well, and if anybody else can point me or correct me on this, I can't recall a time in recent history where an administration to a council is all brand new to that council. Every other administration and every other person in this chamber of a different party has had someone on here who knows the history of decisions, who has known what has happened. We've spent the first 3-4 months, keeping in mind that we weren't in cabinet until the 21st when we actually filled our paperwork and did all of that, to find out what has been going on. So at the moment, you say there's minor tweaks because it's your plan. It's the in-year change. It's not the time to announce our full council plan. It's the time to find out the situation as it is and then make plans to put the plans out. There are things that are happening and you will be given the council plan at the right time. But don't try and spin it to the public to say nothing's happening, because it's quite clear that you who have been here and presided as a portfolio over SEND for the past 8 years in the biggest decline and got us into an Ofsted report where we're having to make sure we're getting changes to fix it. And you've seen the reports and efficiency that have come through on that. There's been multiple changes in that department to work in the wrong direction. And you want us to kind of praise your leadership as a portfolio holder and as the previous administration in bringing us here. I've always said if it's not broke, don't fix it. There are things within the council plan from the previous administration that are good. There are other things that we intend to change. But where it's right, we agree with it. It's not about party politics. It's what's right for Derbyshire. And that's what we're getting on the business of doing. I also thought it was a little bit interesting that the Conservative Party has said that they want to pay everybody the market rate, yet for the past on the road, so it's a bit hypocritical to start by saying that. And you know very well too that the 3% mandatory increase took the chief executive salary from this 178 to 181,000 a year. So, I mean, the point is, you know, we have to replace the managing director. That is not an increase of extra roles. That is statutory. And when we go through the process and release our, that's what's going to happen. So either way, and again, we've actually put in a performance sector with that pay package, which means that any new chief executive or any senior role that we do that way, their salary will be based on KPIs and performance of them in that role to deliver what the best for the incentives for the council and actually make savings. So all of these things are in line, but don't try and spin it to the public to say there's no plan. Don't try and spin it to the public to say there's nothing changing from you. The plan is coming, you'll see it. But to expect that within the first 3 months where we're actually trying to get 5 months if we're generous, because we didn't start until the end of May.
Can you not interrupt?
Either way, we've now understood where we've been left. We've now understood where you've left us, and not all things are bad. Some things are. But we've been generous to you and we've been conciliatory and we said, yep, great. There are things that we want to continue with which are good. There are things that we want to change because we need to head in a different direction. Fine. But trying to spin it to the public as if nothing's changed is complete ludicrousy, and you know it.
Thank you. Councillor Graves, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that was a marvellous speech. I think it was excellent. Thank you very much. Next time I must bring my lead. It's interesting. It's actually interesting because I've been listening to some of these people, some of these councillors talking, and obviously Councillor Dale seems to feel that nothing's changing and we're all going in the same direction that they said. I think that really upsets him because, you know, there's not so many of their members there anymore. However, yeah, on my left we have Councillor Ford and we have Councillor Hatchett, who actually says there's lots of changes. So we're not really sure in the middle here whether you're agreement that there are changes or there's no changes. Maybe you should get together and discuss it all. because we are actually making those changes, and actually the parties on this side have actually read it and understand it. So maybe you should take a leaf out of their book. And they're actually saying where they disagree with it. And as you know, one of the things I wanted to sort of point out, because Councillor Lawson does a particularly good job. He is the Doge cabinet member. He does a very good job. And his job is actually to try and find those savings and try and find those efficiencies. And I actually think he's doing a particularly good job. And he reports in a very honest way. Absolutely honest in this council chamber. So, 3 years ago, this council was 46 million overspent. 2 years ago, it was 20 million. This year, it's 1 million. And yes, some of that was what you put into progress. But you were here for such a long time. Why did you start trying to make those changes at the last minute? You should have done it right at the very beginning, like we are. We've moved in and we're actually doing those changes. And that 1.3 million will go away. And then if I just talk about the overspend in SEND. Now, I did say in my leader's report, it was your government and the Liberal Democrats government, the coalition, that introduced the rules for SEND that have got us into this position. So you should be ashamed of that. Not saying what a wonderful party you are, because you're not. Anyway, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Yes, and I think Councillor Reid mentioned the fact that we are introducing performance pay into this new role. And I actually think that's very important. That's a seismic change from your party, from the parties over here. We are making sure that they achieve targets that we set for them. That is a big change that's going to happen in this council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Councillor Furness, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very rarely I will probably ever get to speak here, but I just wanted to make a point, if that's possible, and it's regarding decorum actually in this chamber. There's a certain way of dealing with positive debate, and, you know, to the left of me, the individuals in questions have spoken well of themselves. Unfortunately, on the right, I can't actually comment, other than to say that it's despicable. The fact is, you have seen individuals talking over whilst there's actually people trying to debate points. And in fact, the fact that we've actually had an individual in this chamber out ourselves as liars is actually liable. And I would like to ask that the tapes are actually reviewed and that we look into this particular proceedings, because it's unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We do note the comments, and yes, we'll look into it. Thank you. Councillor Lawson, do you wish to respond, to close, or move to the vote?
I'd just like to respond to a couple of points, if you don't mind, Chairman. As Councillor Graves mentioned, I do try and bring some honesty and hopefully integrity to this position, and in that sense I will say it how it is. I can't really let this go by though without saying that I think there's some brass neck over that side of the room. We've inherited a catastrophic period of Tory administration in this council in terms of financial management. I took the view when I was asked to stand in this position, I took the view that I would take a few months to assess what the situation was and try to put a steady hand on the tiller effectively. And that's hopefully what I've done. I'm absorbing and trying to understand how this council operates from a financial perspective. No.
Excuse me, no interruption, please.
As far as I'm aware, there are no cuts planned, and certainly not for libraries. And as I mentioned in the last cabinet meeting, personally, from my point of view, libraries have a certain personal attachment to me and my family in the past. All of us, certainly from my grandparents and parents' perspective, they came from deprived backgrounds, and public libraries helped them to expand their literary experience. So, no, from my point of view, I would certainly vote against any cuts to libraries. Having said that, obviously, nobody's got a crystal ball, so we don't know what the situation what financial predicament we're likely to find in the future. But, as I mentioned in my report, and as laid out in the detailed report, the situation is much, much better than the previous 2 years. And Councillor Hatchett kindly reminded us of that fact, and I think Councillor Graves actually talked about the figures. 2 years ago, at this point, we were looking like 46 million overspend, and last year it was, I believe it was somewhere around about 20 million overspend at this point. So to have a 1.3 million overspend at this point is a vast improvement. I'd just like to finish off really by saying that, like I say, hopefully I want to be a steady hand on the tiller to make sure that we've weathered this storm that we've had for the last few years under the previous administration, and hopefully lead us into the future, improving services, making efficiencies, yes, not cuts, but efficiencies, so that we can improve services and deliver a better life experience for the public of Derbyshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. And can we move to the vote, please? Thank you. That's been approved. And moving on to item 17, decisions taken as a matter of urgency and key decisions with special urgency. Councillor Graves to move the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just move note the report as recommended.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder?
Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions or contributions from members? Councillor Fordham, please.
I just want to flag up my first ever question in the chamber, I think, was in relation to the Buxton Crescent Hotel repayment of loan. We were at the peak of lockdown, and the former rat-infested administration wrote off, I think it was £250,000 of debt to one of the largest companies whilst doing nothing at all for hoteliers and bed and breakfast and tourists in Derbyshire. I will be writing to the portfolio holder. I just want to check we haven't made that same mistake again of writing off debt to a company that incurred it heavily, unable to carry it forward, and then expected us to bear the burden. We've done enough to prop up that failing company.
So that item is reports have been made confidential, decisions made confidentially, so perhaps that's picked up outside the meeting.
I understand that there's matters of confidence here, so probably picked up outside of the meeting. Thank you. And we're now going to, you don't wish to say any more? No. Thank you. We'll move to the vote, please. Thank you. That's been approved. So now moving on to item 19, notice of motion. 6 have been received. A couple have been withdrawn, I think. But motion 1 is from Councillor Graves. Councillor Graves, would you like to move your motion, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I hope that this motion isn't controversial and that we can get cross-party support. I did learn that a very similar motion was brought to this council before we came in May. However, I actually think it's a good idea to reiterate how we feel within this council. So, Mr. Chairman, Derbyshire is under attack in the name of net zero, and we must show our opposition to it. South Derbyshire is only a part of Derbyshire and is currently undergoing opposition to large-scale solar and battery storage developments in South Derbyshire. I speak today to oppose the wave of industrial-scale solar farms and battery storage projects being forced onto South Derbyshire. Let's be clear what's at stake. At Oakland Farm, the proposed site covers 191 hectares, nearly 500 acres of farmland. Surveys confirm the presence of 321 trees, groups and hedgerows, with at least 241 metres of hedgerow loss and individual trees removed for access. At Stenson Lane, a 23-acre battery site sits on farmland where hedgerows from crucial wildlife corridors. Once disrupted, these corridors are gone. At Eggington, more productive farmland is earmarked for development despite concerns raised in the ecological appendices. At Arleston and Overseal, yet more greenfield land will disappear, dressed up with promises of habitat enhancement that cannot replace mature living ecosystems. Let us now look at the bigger picture. Food security. 500 acres of farmland that at Oakland's farm can produce enough wheat to bake around 3.5 million loaves of bread every single year. That's food for thousands of families. Once covered in glass and steel, that capacity is gone. Then we can look at the energy output. In return, the solar farm would at best provide intermittent electricity for perhaps 35 to 40,000 homes, but only when the sun shines. On winter evenings, when families need it most, those panels produce nothing. So we're being asked to swap guaranteed food on the table for uncertainty energy in the grid. That is not common sense, that is reckless. And the damage does not stop there. Farmland birds such as skylarks, yellowhammers and lapwings will lose their nesting grounds. Pollinators, bees and butterflies, already in national decline, will be pushed further to the brink as hedgerows are destroyed. Bats, owls and small mammals depend on those tree lines. Fragment them and whole populations collapse. This is not about being green, it is about being seen to tick boxes for net zero targets, targets that rely on panels and batteries manufactured in China and shipped halfway across the world. That is not environmentally sound. It is hypocrisy. Reform is clear. Britain needs energy security, not at the expense of food security. Agricultural land exists to feed people, not to host industrial energy experiments. And South Derbyshire is being made to carry a disproportionate burden, while other areas remain untouched. Council must act. We must oppose in principle large-scale solar farms and battery sites on greenfield land. We must stand with residents, farmers and parish councils who are rightly alarmed. And we must call on South Derbyshire District Council, our MPs and the Secretary of State to halt the creeping industrialisation of rural Derbyshire. Mr. Chairman, members, if we allow this, we will destroy the very countryside we claim to protect. South Derbyshire will not become greener. It will become an eco-desert of steel, glass and lithium. Let us defend our farmland, defend our wildlife, defend our communities. That is reform, that is common sense, and that is our duty. I commend this motion to Council.
Thank you. And could I have a seconder, please? Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hill. And comments, questions, Councillor Kinsella.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I don't quite know where to start. I mean, the goal of this administration is to talk about protecting the environment when they can't even bring themselves to say reducing carbon emissions. Common sense. What is common sense? You're not even backed by the NFU and Council Protection of Rural England. This is an ill thought out motion that has no support from people who understand these issues about farming and understand about the rural environment. Let me start by focusing on one of the things that has been said in the motion. This shows how wrong it is, really. Councillor Graves in the motion talks about this government being obsessed with net zero. If only this were true. With plans for a new runway at Gatwick, with plans for a new runway at Heathrow, with plans to reverse the banning of new oil and gas drilling, I would argue that it's negligent rather than obsessed. Those are the words I would use. So on to the substantive element of the motion. So firstly, the motion states, and I quote, agricultural land serves one purpose only, and that is for farmers to produce food and enhance Britain's food security. This statement alone demonstrates this motion is ill thought out. Can I not be interrupted?
Sorry, please, applies to everybody. Please let the councillors be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The Council for the Protection of Rural England, a mainstream conservation organisation, are pressing the government to ban solar farms. They're pressing the government to ban solar farms on high-grade farmland. But they argue this is not the case for lower-grade farmland. We've heard nothing from this motion or from the proposer about the nature of this land other than it is agricultural land. So going on further, even the Farmers' Union, the National Farmers' Union, view agri-solar, as it's known, as a positive tool for farm diversification and sustainability. But again, they argue, not on high-quality agricultural land. So I'm referring to people who are the experts in these areas. The NFU go on to say that the amount of land occupied by solar farms will remain a small fraction, and the total agricultural land of the total agricultural land in the UK, and therefore agriculture. Sorry, I keep saying agriculture, and therefore agri-solar is not a threat to food security. So Councillor Graves has said it is a threat to food security, but the NFU have countered that. I suggest he has a conversation with them about this. I certainly know which side of the argument I'll be on. Therefore, the motion is problematic, as it doesn't state the nature of the agricultural land being used. And secondly, it's unusual for a motion to come to full council where the decision is that of the district council. I have every confidence in South Derbyshire Council and other districts for that matter in making the right decision on behalf of their residents without the intervention of Derbyshire County Council and the Reform Party. And finally, the Green Party's position on this. The Green Party, while supporting renewable energy, as does this administration, the Green Party support renewable energy, but we argue for the protection of high-quality agricultural land, a la the NFU and the Council for Protection of Rural England. Our approach is to advocate for solar energy on rooftops and brownfield sites. They're the priorities, and only considering agricultural land on the least productive and low-quality land. Unlike this motion, our approach reflects the balance between mitigating against the worst aspects of climate change, listening to local people's concerns about industrialising valuable landscapes and delivering food security. And because it's such an ill-thought-out motion, it's not a motion that we will be supporting.
Thank you. Councillor Dale, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just first want to address some of Councillor Kinsella's comments. I'm from a farming background. My brothers are still actively farming in Lincolnshire. My dad was a farmer. They grow significant amount of arable crops. And generally speaking, it is not high-quality land. It's low-quality land. and they still grow hundreds of acres of wheat and other crops, combinable crops. And the really important thing to highlight, though, is that is still part of the food chain. That is grown for animal feed and therefore enters the food chain. So to make the argument that we'll only build solar farms on poorer quality land, I don't think is legitimate. I think that even lower quality land has its role to play in our food security. And the second point I would highlight is that we are an island nation. We've undergone some crazy things in the past few years in terms of the war in Ukraine, our reliance on other countries for our food and energy. I would accept that energy is part of that. But we have to be able to feed our population. It's the first duty of any government. And I therefore think that actually, even with lower grade land, this shouldn't be happening. We should have much more comprehensive strategies around rooftop solar, which I would absolutely support and applaud. We should have a much greater focus on nuclear, which we know is a clean energy source. It's been berated by lots on the green lobby in particular, but actually is really important to helping to meet our needs because it's far more efficient than lots of these other forms of renewable. On the motion itself, we absolutely support in principle, as you rightly highlighted. We had a motion ourselves back in March that covered a few other issues as well. I think the pylons and the housing targets, and this very much builds on that motion. I would highlight that obviously it's linked specifically to South Derbyshire, but I've got several examples in my patch. There was a BESS site that fortunately was turned down on the Greenbelt just between Dronfield and Sheffield. I know that there are massive solar proposals in Amber Valley and southern North East Derbyshire. So I would just suggest, if we'll allow it, a friendly amendment to remove the word south from the first resolution. So it's in Derbyshire rather than in South Derbyshire. And where the reference to South Derbyshire District Councils, if that could just be to all our district and borough councils. Because I think this issue, I appreciate South Derbyshire's getting it in the neck at the minute, but I think a lot of our areas are experiencing the same challenges. So we would absolutely support that motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor. I understand that if you wish to accept that amendment, you could do, otherwise it would have to go forward as a formal proposal. Sorry, just making that point, and no need to respond now, but...
My group will accept that amendment, and we're happy for that to go forward.
Okay.
Consent of seconder.
So, okay. Consent of seconder then, please. Yeah, okay. Yes, while you're on your feet, can you speak, please?
Yeah, so I'd like to second the amendment, which I think has been accepted, which I think then makes it a substantive motion. But I'm sure the person who's going to speak after me, Councillor Mabbott's probably going to say the same thing that I'm going to say now, is about the one that's 90-odd acres in Boy Grange Farm in Erywash, which is massive. It's not on low-quality land. If you read the report, it's moderate, good quality arable land. It's a beautiful setting within the Erywash Valley, teeming with wildlife and biodiversity. And I just find it absolutely madness when local planning authorities are passing huge planning permissions for huge warehouses without insisting on solar panels on the roof, but then in the same breath allowing people to tear up the countryside to put panels on over grass and crops. It's just madness. It makes no sense. I can't for the life of me understand why you wouldn't put them on buildings first. And once we do that, maybe open to arguments about other places, but until that happens, definite no from me.
Thank you. Councillor Mabbott, please.
Following on from Councillor Major. You've blown this, haven't you? So I represent Ilkeston South and Kirkhallam in Erywash. You can walk the 2 miles from Kirkhallam along ancient paths trod by monks hundreds of years ago to the small village of Dale Abbey. This is a beautiful landscape with abundant wildlife where I personally stood and admired the wild deers, the birds, the hedgerows which were alive with activity. It's also Hermit's Cave, which was carved into the sandstone in 1130, the ruins of Dale Abbey, which was built around 1200, and the All Saints Church, which is one of the smallest churches in England. Dale Abbey has visitors from near and far. They come to absorb its beauty and walk through the ancient network of pathways. 75,000 panels. Solar installation spreading over 120 acres is planned to sit within 70 metres of the Hermitage. No more wild deer due to the 7-foot-high fencing that will surround the 120-acre enclosure with floodlights and CCTV masts. To give it some perspective, that's 70 football pitches. Less than 100 people live in Dale Abbey, but it's estimated that at its peak, over 200 members of staff will be on site, and the development is estimated to run for 9 months. So not only will the landscape be destroyed, but the sleepy village will have to endure months of construction, traffic, noise and disruption. The point is that while solar panels are a tool for cleaner energy, and on domestic roofs, car parks, industrial estates, commercial premises, we need to explore alternatives that do not destroy the very thing that gives Derbyshire its beauty and food on our tables. We must do everything in our power to oppose these solar and battery storage farms on agricultural and greenbelt land. Thank you.
Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to bring to Councillor Kinsella's attention the final point on the motion, where he's talking about lower grade farming land being less valuable than high farming land, that Councillor Dale has proved wrong on that point. But there's actually a proposal for battery storage farms in South Derbyshire within Overseal, which is actually in the National Forest, and they're actually removing trees from the National Forest to install that battery storage farm, and that for me is protected trees that are now 30 years old. They should be respected as their priority in the National Forest. So to echo the comments of the Conservatives and Reform councillors, why not put them on industrial estates and all of the new build houses that we're seeing the Labour government put up all over the country now. So, yeah, definitely National Forest, we should be leaving that well alone. But we are seeing the solar farm madness plague South Derbyshire in particular now, and that will scar our countryside forever. We are seeing this Labour government picking up from where the Conservatives left off with pushing this net zero agenda, despite Great Britain only contributing 0.3% of the world carbon emissions. The irony we're dealing with is that this net zero planet-saving solar panels and batteries are made from plastic and shipped halfway across the world from China. Arguably, the most horrendous part of this that can be taken from these applications is that the Labour-run South Derbyshire District Council are approving the solar farms and battery farms on greenbelt land. The majority of the applications listed in this motion are on agricultural land. Not only does this equate to a loss of farmland and food-producing land, we are losing countryside. As a Reform councillor, I have campaigned to protect the country that gave me such a fond childhood. Now, I want to protect the South Derbyshire that I grew up in for future generations. At the rate South Derbyshire is expanding, my future children will not grow up in the same South Derbyshire countryside that I did.
Thank you. Councillor Turrell, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think there's not much that I want to say that hasn't already been said. I think it is just a common sense policy to try and focus on putting solar panels on houses and industrial estates that are already built instead of destroying our beautiful countryside. You know, Derbyshire's green and pleasant land. I just think we should protect that as much as we can and push back against these net zero fanatics and eco zealots who are trying to create all these renewable energies at the expense of the environment, which I thought was what they're supposed to be fighting for. I must be mistaken.
Thank you. Councillor Benfield, please.
Thank you, Chair. As the Councillor for Repton and Stenson in South Derbyshire, I must emphasise how deeply valued our surrounding countryside is to the local residents. These open spaces are not just part of the landscape, they are vital for physical and mental well-being of our community, offering safe and accessible areas for walking and recreation. Proposed solar and BESS development would mean a significant loss of this much-loved countryside threatening the rural character that defines our villages and diminishes residents' access to green spaces. The visual and environmental impacts would be substantial. It is clear from my constituents' concerns that these solar structures are neither wanted nor welcomed.
Thank you. Councillor Bromley, please.
Thank you. This motion brings together two items. I live in South Derbyshire, and also for 20 plus years I've been submitting planning applications into the authority as well. So basically the area that this motion was around in South Derbyshire, if I can focus down on the Swadlincote area, just give you a slight overview to start with. Swadlincote, the main town. Now, the reason we're being targeted in this area is 5 miles to the north, you've got the ex-Willington Power Station. 2 miles to the south of the town, you've got Drakelow Power Station. So that's why we're being targeted. Now, planning, it's always a balancing act. You need to grow the economy, but at the same time, you've got to protect the residents' feelings in that area. At the moment, in South Derbyshire, this imbalance, the scales have tipped dramatically over to the other side. In this area, for example, I've just highlighted, there's at least 18 sites that have been earmarked or possible sites for these battery farms and then some solar farms. Now, obviously, they come with the dangers. You've got the fires, explosions, etc. It's all on, mainly, as we've said before, all the good agricultural land, and a lot of it is the most valuable land. So, and then as well, we'll come to the National Forest. We've got the one in Overseal that's passed, like Councillor Hills just said. I can remember on the day that was passed, I think I saw a social post from Councillor Reaney that in the north of the county, we'd planted 2,500 trees in this woodland. On the same day, South Derbyshire District Council voted in to cut down 4,500 trees on the same day. Now, coming back to Councillor Kinsella, he says that he has his trust in South Derbyshire District Council to make the right decision. Well, obviously, as a resident of South Derbyshire, specifically Swadlincote, you only have to live there, and they're in disarray at the moment, and they've lost all trust of the residents with all the decisions that they've been making. If I can focus on the Overseal application in particular, in the planning committee, I think a couple of members in here were also on that committee, and I believe that they voted against it. But the Labour-run authority, they voted for it. It was a deciding vote. And ironically, the chairman of the planning committee, he was actually the councillor for Overseal, and he had the casting vote to pass it. Since then, I don't know where it's related, but he has since resigned, and there is a by-election coming up in Overseal. So that's the sort of feeling there is in the area. So I object to that quote about you trust in South Derbyshire. Believe me, come down to South Derbyshire and ask the residents, they don't. Just to finish off, really, basically what's happening is the Labour administration, especially on the planning, the Secretary of State for Net Zero is carrying out basically authoritarian rule from the top, and in effect stripping the councils of the authority to make the decision making. And then in South Derbyshire, instead of the local district council fighting back and standing up for the people and what's best for the people, instead they're rolling over and having the bellies tickled by Ed Miliband. So that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Redfern, please.
I'd just like to add, as a farmer myself, in Hilton Division, I've seen a vast expanse of Dove Valley Park in the past 10 years, covering probably hundreds of acres, that park, of industrial units, and there's not, as I'm aware, not one solar panel on any of the units. Instead, probably within a 2-mile radius, I know of at least 3 solar parks. One's not been constructed yet, and one is 100 acres, and it was on one of the most productive farmland in the county, and that's gone forever now, and that won't ever come back. And you won't ever see a dairy cow walk over that ever again. So I'm in favour of this motion. I don't want to see solar panels on any farmland. Even if it's low grade, it still has a job in producing food for this nation.
Councillor Ford, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wasn't on that panel that voted for this item over seal, just to put the record straight. But it's quite ironic, I find, that through LGR we'll be bringing into potentially South Derbyshire one of the world's greatest engineering companies, which is pioneering small modular reactors. And so the thought that we could produce a small modular reactor which would remove thousands and thousands of acres needed for solar panels at a stroke is something that we ought to be supporting. And you know, I was fortunate to be at the ploughing match with the leader, and I would have spoken to you there, Chair. But I was actually thinking I was in the beer tent at the time. I was, yeah. But, yeah, it was. But you know, the need to promote alternatives to solar power, and to wind power to a degree, which we know is spending millions and billions, turning off wind farms that we can't store the energy for. How we're using technology such as SMRs, we wouldn't have the need for battery farms, we wouldn't have the need for solar farms, we wouldn't have the need for wind farms to a lot lesser degree than we're depending on them now. So as part of the motion, obviously I'm going to support it. We need to be making in times future, especially through LGR and the potential for Rolls-Royce to be another modular reactors are available other brands are available. You know, we do need to be making sure that we're not going headlong into what I call environmental vandalism, littering the countryside with solar farms that are just devastating wildlife, devastating the countryside for 40 years, maybe in some cases. So supporting the motion, but I will be asking the leader, who has another role, of course, in the city, to be really looking hard to see how we can push the government to be looking more at the use of SMRs rather than the widespread use of these wretched solar panels and in many beautiful areas wind turbines as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Wood.
Hey.
As the Cabinet Member for Net Zero and the Environment, I have been and continue to be challenged. Why aren't we saving carbon? Why aren't we addressing climate change at any cost? This is why. This is why we are doing sensible things locally which do not compromise the environment at any cost.
Councillor Brown.
There we go. I did check that I was allowed to get up and say something. At the end of the term of these panels, it states that it will be returned back to its original land. But that's impossible. It will never be returned back to its arable land. The previous condition is destroyed, it's eroded after the solar panels have been in place for so many years. Things like transformer oils, heavy metal leaching, runoff, soil erosion, and after 7 years in place, the fertility of the soil changes and it would take decades for that to return. So, Councillor Kinsella, would you approve one of these solar farms on your land, in your back garden, where it affected your plants, your trees, your soil, and possibly killed off or affected the health of your pets? If the answer is yes, vote how you may.
Councillor Hatchett.
So it's a really tricky question, isn't it? This issue of what we mean by the environment and what is most important to us. Is it, the view from our backyard, or is it the climate crisis, which is coming for all of us? So it's a tricky one. It really is. There's a lot of detail been discussed now. Some of it I can sympathise with. Some of it I think is pseudoscience. I'm sorry. But there's a lot of issues. I think if the motion had been written better in the first place, some of this wouldn't have needed to have come out, because our position when Jez and I have talked about this, and Councillor Kinsella and I have talked about this, is we don't know enough about this. But obviously, as we've already said, there's a real tension between the short-term environment and the long-term environment, although the long-term environment is coming for us very quickly. So it's a really tricky one, I think. I think it's interesting when we start talking about energy security, because you can be in favour of energy security, but then you're not in favour of, apparently a lot of people are not in favour of the things that would help us be more secure. We've heard about small modular reactors. My understanding of that is that that's a long way down the line before we're going to have anything like that installed. And anyway, if one is going to be installed next to your house, are you going to be objecting to it? Because that's going to be your trade-off, isn't it? You didn't want the solar farm, so now you've got the small modular reactor. Do you want a nuclear plant next to your house? So there are all of these really difficult questions to consider. And I think the debate here has got into a lot of detail, which is probably not for here, because it's a South Derbyshire County District Council matter. But I just find it fascinating. I just want to comment really how fascinating it is that, we can say, well, I'm not having that in my backyard, and we can come up with all of the reasons for not having it, that it destroys the view and it uses farmland and everything else. But what are we going to do? What are we actually going to do about climate change? Thank you.
Councillor Elston.
I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention something which may have slipped under the radar, which is a huge solar installation that's currently being proposed in the north of Derbyshire. It only just encroaches into some ancient woodlands, which I'm told is the second oldest woodland in the north of England, which is, and the solar installation is stretching across 22 parishes, or 5 miles, completely decimating the land where I grew up and know well. I have two concerns. One is I'm told that the land will be returned after a 60-year licence to its original classification. As Jodie pointed out, I'm not sure that's even possible. My cynicism says that once the classification of the land changes from green belt to industrial, that there's nothing to stop them taking away those solar panels in 10 years' time and building housing or industrial estates even on what is now brownfield site. My second concern is, at what point, we're talking about a solar installation in the South Derbyshire and now a huge solar installation in North Derbyshire. At some point, it seems they will be joined up and Derbyshire basically disappears. So at what point do you say no? Thank you.
Because we are a few minutes away from 5 o'clock and I believe the meeting needs to be extended. She's moving to yeah, so I have no idea what
Can we have a proposer for an extension? Of how long?
I leave it to the monitoring officer to advise on how long. Is it until, on the chair, is it until business is concluded? Because we don't want to take it forward to the next meeting. Or is there a time limit? I leave it, because it'll be councillors' questions that are not answered. Yeah, but they can make the decision, can't they?
Need a proposal for how long? You're not going to propose anything. Don't want to conclude this motion. Not.
Till for at least an hour, so we can get councillor questions in and the motions.
Okay. We have a proposal for an extension for an hour. Would anybody like to second? Thank you.
So it's moving to the vote then. So,
Sure, show of hands?
yeah, show of hands.
Okay, we can move to a vote and it'll be a show of hands, please. All in favour of accepting an 1 hour extension?
Any against?
And against?
Any abstentions?
And any abstentions?
That's been lost.
I'm afraid that proposal has been lost. With 5 minutes to go.
Understanding order 14.1J, that the question now be put.
Thank you. So we're now going to move that the question on this motion is put to the vote, please.
Am I permitted? Oh, you were going to vote, aren't you? Okay.
Well, then, can't it?
Thank you. The motion has been approved. We've got 4 minutes left. Councillor Major, would you like to propose your motion in 4 minutes?
The council has voted to not extend the meeting. The motions will fall, the questions will get written answers, and that the dialogue you and I had in advance of this meeting counted for nothing. Is that correct?
I'm following procedure, and the outstanding business of this council would be carried forward. Thank you. Councillor Furness, wishing to speak? No, that was old, is it? No.
I just wanted to do, obviously, just...
Sorry, no, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked.
Concluded that particular motion.
We've concluded that motion.
Okay.
And as Councillor Major said, with now 3 minutes, do you wish to just draw it to the next meeting?
The monitoring officer advised what happens if we open the motion compared to if we don't open the motion. Just wait till the next meeting. Because I don't know can you leave a council meeting half open in a debate?
Anybody can leave.
I think the motion's doing.
Anybody can leave.
Yes, please.
So thank you very much, Chairman. I can advise on that particular issue. You will be familiar with those amendments to the council procedure rules previously that held over, where a motion to amend the rules has been proposed and seconded, but then adjourned to the debate at the next meeting. So we do have precedent where a motion can be proposed and seconded at one meeting, but then the debate held over to another meeting. So that is something that could happen in the next 2 minutes. Alternatively, the whole item could be deferred until the next agenda.
On that basis, I think it's sensible to close the meeting. I thank you all for your attendance and see you at the next council meeting. Thank you.